Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. I'm your host Richard Lewis, and joining me as he is often prone to do is Duncan Thorin Shields, the esports historian. Sam Bainlaw Davis will be producing the show, also as he often does, but not always. And we're going to be talking about the wonderful end of days in Counter-Strike. That kind of feels what we're living through at the moment. What have you been up to anyway? We haven't done a show for a while. I know I've been fucking... That's my fault, of course.
Not much. I actually haven't been doing that much myself this last week. I'm sort of kicking back in the gear now. I was just taking time off, and that's all. Believe it or not, just have a few days where I play some games and whatnot. No, I will say that's the funny thing, isn't it, Richard? Because good news, everyone. You all won. Congrats. Each of you at home watching now personally won the Vietnam of your generation. Cloud9's gone. They're not even in Counter-Strike anymore. Flashpoint's dead as a doornail. None of that money will be going to those players. Good news, though. Oh, there's nothing to replace it and the whole thing's over. Last one on the way out, turn the lights out. Well done, you win. You win, guys at home. You win. You won it. That's it. What do you win, by the way? What did you actually get for... Oh, nothing. You just got less. Unilaterally, less across the board for everyone. And now we all get to eat a massive plate of shit. And good news is, there isn't even a game called Valorant we can all pivot into. Because that game's a fucking non-starter too. Great. You've done it. Well done, guys. Well done. But I'll tell you what. Good news would be at least all the shit clout chasers who post on Twitter all have jobs in esports now. I saw this the other day, mate. I won't make a big tangent of it. I'll put it by the by. This would blow your mind, mate. If you saw what one of the big esports sites, who they'd hired as their social media manager, it is literally a guy who was a mentally ill fanboy in League of Legends who just made memes. That was it. And so their logic was... Well, he's making memes again.
He's making memes.
So they just hired him.
Yeah,
literally,
so
I'm talking about a journalistic outlet here, Richard. One that, like, in theory, prides itself. I tell you what, I'll give you a clue. Some big-headed cunt recently went back there to his home. That's the level we're talking about, mate. We're not talking about, like, fly-by-night organizations. Like, that's what esports is now. Here's the real dark red pill of esports. It's the black pill in reality, isn't it? Are you ready, everyone? Esports, they finally found out how you make the money. Now, the real way you make the money is you let the creative people have control of the tournaments and the team, and then you'd make loads of money. No. What you do is they're all verboten, they're all banned. Anyone who actually has a brand and talent to make like actual money for people, you're not allowed to work in the industry. You have to work on the fringes like me and Richard. But here's the thing, good news. The orgs and the TOs have found out how you make money. You make frivolous, low-effort content like stupid memes, and you hire morons to wear jerseys and lie about people on body. And rather than have like a really long video where Richard goes and reads like, you know, California bylaws to tell you exactly whether something works in a certain way, why not just listen to a guy comment on whether or not Richard should even actually be allowed to say those things based on a review of his tweets and a few random clips from live stream fails? Like, that's what esports is going to be now. So I hope you're all loving it, because aside from the shit people like me and Richard are maybe going to do ourselves separate to all of that garbage, that's the way it's going to go. That's going to be esports from now on. It's going to just be the lowest hanging fruit. And that's all people are going to go for. Why bother going for more? Look at the morons that you deliver it to. They don't deserve any more.
Well, that's a powerful intro. Let's shout out the sponsors.
That's where we're at.
No. We're going to get into it. I realise once again that the show is going to be Petty Grievances, part 568. And that's fine. I choose violence today. I'm up for it. So look, shout out to the sponsors, the people who are supporting us through the end of days. Obviously, .com/RLS if you want to support them and place bets on esports events, preferably not ones you're playing in, across multiple accounts, in a safe, ethical environment. Don't worry, they have protections to stop that kind of thing. Crazy, eh? Also, if you want to get yourself a VPN, which I recommend, I mean, maybe those guys could have been using VPNs as well. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS for 70% off a VPN to hide your shit. Definitely worthwhile in the times in which we live. So look, there was a lot to unpack there, as the woke kids say. So I'll get the, because it is unrelated and it's just petty grievances, but I will get what you alluded to there about obviously EsportsTalk. You know, you were referencing that, which is, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, EsportsTalk is basically a group of people who, and you know, like every media outlet, they have got some good people over there. I've got a friend who works over there as well, a couple of friends actually. So you know. But basically what they've kind of pioneered is they don't break news, yet they pose as a journalistic outlet. They don't really report on the news per se. because to me, reporting would be, this is again how I was trained. If you report on something that's happened, you want to put, yes, the facts, but it also has to kind of be your own work.
Yeah, what have you got to add?
Yeah.
Of course.
And often one of the things you might get tasked with doing is, if their angle is this, why don't you talk to an expert and get their opinion? Why don't you talk to this person and get their opinion? Why don't you canvass eyewitnesses? Whatever it is, you try and add something of value so your reporting is worth reading. Now, you immediately, I can already tell all the EsportsTalk fans, their eyes are just rolled up in their head and they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Because these guys just read tweets.
It's like if two Redditors just got together on camera and just read our tweets and then just said whatever they thought about them. That's it. That's like the show. That's our value add.
And listen, I'm going to start doing these tweets now. Because one of the things that I'm annoyed about is kind of what I'm jokingly calling influencer lessons, which is the way that influencers and prominent figures all behave the same way, like some sort of hive mind, And it's like, here's what you do if you're an influencer, right? You wake up, you tweet something out like, hey, who's awake now? Or, hey, are you ready to get this bread? Always a question. Polls are good for this too. You put a poll, and then it forces interaction, and the thought process is the more and more people reply, the more and more their friends see them reply. They might want to follow. They might want to join it. And it's just cynical manipulation of the social media machine. But that's fine. I mean, I use social media to promote my work, which I believe does have value. I don't just have a large following on social media to have a large following. In fact, one of the things I always find hilarious is I get accused of being a clout seeker, attention seeker, drama chaser, but to gain followers. But yeah, I also am accused of having a block list that runs into the multiple.
It's mad, that one, isn't it? Yeah, same thing, mate. Apparently, we're both so desperate to be relevant, we'll say anything. But if you listen, we just block everyone. So
yeah, it's
how anyone resolves that one, I've never understood really. That's
I don't know.
Like equation.
The sound of one hand clapping in many ways for the social media generation, isn't it? So yeah, and what you'll notice is as well, another thing that these influencers do is whenever there's a happening on Twitter, whenever there's a popular Twitter thread, that means when another influencer essentially is trying to influence people and grow their following.
I hate. I know where you're going.
You have to reply to it instantly. You have to insert yourself and be in there. And it's one of the reasons why so many people like these guys complain about being blocked, because then they can't do that. And if you don't think that's
people don't know, that's the main reason I started blocking people in esports. Long before, by the way, I went Richards route, just blocked like random morons. Like the only people I had blocked, I had a block list of 10 people for about a decade. And it was just, you can guess, the big clout chasers in Counter-Strike, because all they would do is if I did a tweet, they had to embed it or they had to reply, and they hoped they would get 1 million engagements from that. I mean, in the modern day, by the way, it's even worse. They just do the ratio or whatever, and half the time get ratioed themselves. Yeah. But that's also, by the way, the reason why it's not worth directly battling these people. When you realize that the guy actually doesn't care if he gets ratioed, it's like, so this is a pointless game then. Like, this is like we're playing Russian roulette. You want to die. Like, why am I taking turns then? What the fuck is this? No, I think the same thing, mate. Like, it's so stupid. And like, it's one of the reasons why, the people who actually don't know what clout chasing is. Like, when do I ever do the tweet like that, Richard? Like, good morning to everyone except something funny. Like, you never see a tweet like that in your life from me, because there's no value add there, is there? Like, even if you think a tweet I make about some League of Legends player is useless, it's a real opinion. I actually thought it was worth putting in the world. It's original thought.
Yeah. And so anyway, they're there all the time replying to everything, and it's basically their way to kind of like, ride along on the coattails. So already they're not behaving as a journalistic outlet, and as I'm going to get to in a second, you'll love this.
Dude, it reminds me of AMAs. You might remember this reference, but what fans won't. One of the things that made AMAs, particularly in League of Legends, like insufferable, was, first of all, except for me, because I'm kind of the person who broke the ground on this, most people would obviously reply like 2 words or a sentence, right, to every question. So as a result, by the way, even if it's the biggest person in the world, Hotshot GG, St. Vicious, you're all desperately coming into this AMA thing, fuck, I hope there's some really good answers. And there's only going to be like 10. Yeah. Even worse than that, guys. Their 10 answers, 3 or 4 of them would just be replying to other famous people in the thread. Like Scarra would just go, and who's your favourite member of Dig? And then they'd go, I don't know, maybe I'm a cute part. They'll be like, dude, this is one of the questions. He's only going to answer 10. Why? And so you used to get the same thing. It was the same premise. It was like it's basically like Scarra just going, what is this, like an appreciation thing for someone not called Scarra? Fuck, anyone in here like Scarra? Like, how narcissistic are you cunts? But they've done like the journalistic equivalent of this now. That's what they're actually doing with these replies, Richard.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. It is true.
I love Scarra, by the way. That was
Scarra, just an example. I was thinking that.
He's a good guy.
He's a nice guy, actually. Yeah. Cool guy. But now forever known as a demented narcissist. Party pooper for no reason.
Take the clip. Don't even show there's anything else.
Whatever. Just clip it out of context. Why not? So anyway, so they do that. So you can already see how they're not operating on the level as like a journalistic outlet would. I'm not mandated to reply to everything that's happening on Twitter, so I can get my engagement levels up. Should I decide to make a video about it? And then you have to look at the editorial process, which I found out a lot about the editorial process for EsportsTalk recently. What they do is they look at what's popular, then they script their own videos, and they are sort of mandated to do maybe 2 a day. And it literally just is me in front of a microphone. Here is the thing that happened. And that's it. That's all they had. Here is the thing that happened. This guy tweeted this guy tweeted that. So what they really are is they're more like an offshoot of what is called, hilariously, the commentary community on YouTube, which is like basically all the fucking shit bottom feeders who just are like, well, what's Pokemon said to do? Oh my god, they're arguing. Oh, I'm trying to insert myself into this, but I'm a nobody. Oh, I've done nothing, but I'm here. Those guys. So the difference with them being they at least offer commentary. So I really don't understand. Like, EsportsTalk is basically, you might have missed this on social media.
Technically, the name is accurate. They do just talk. That is all they do.
Yeah,
like they're essentially inadvertently like a not very good service for the blind. They
have got that down. They do talk. Not always about esports as well. You have to understand, you've got 2 words in your name, and one of them is completely misleading.
Half of it's just about streamers, mate.
Yeah, like it's not really esports, is it? 50% of your video output isn't about esports either. So basically they just say this is something that happened on Twitter, which you probably did see and probably already know about, which is why you're probably here, because you knew to look for it. And then they just read it back to you. It is basically it is to news what a bedtime story read by a parent is to literature. It's garbage.
The funny thing, you've only just made me think about this now, but this actually makes me think even less of them, Richard, because here's the funny thing. I would actually have assumed, by the way, because I'd barely ever watched any of their content. I just knew that guy was an arsehole, the main one, so I just stayed away from him, right? One of the things I at least assumed they did in the videos was like a shit version of what we do in our videos, which is like they attempt some sort of, like editorial, or they don't do any of that. Dude, Like you're saying, you get to the end of the video and you look at the time and you go, there's only about 30 seconds left. And then they'll just sort of go, like, you'll get to the part where you've just finished reading tweets on screen, half the time misreading them, but whatever. You finish reading the tweets, and then you think, right, what's he going to say now? And then they'll just go, and if anything else comes out with the story, we'll keep you updated. It's like, where are your thoughts? What? Yeah. What's the value add? What is this?
But they cannot have thoughts, because to have thoughts and opinions is by definition to become divisive. Because as soon as you express an opinion, Duncan, you might have noticed this at some point in your career. As soon as you express an opinion, there are people who will disagree with that opinion in an infinite universe and with infinite probabilities. That will occur. And so if you do that, what if the wrong person, i.e. someone you want to do a video about in future, someone you want to have access to in future, someone you want to send you a jersey in future, what if you upset them by expressing an opinion? What if you isolate yourself from that fan base, and then they don't click on your videos or they boycott you? Not that anyone really ever does that anyway, because the whole digital industry is driven by hate clicks. But, so what happens then? And so obviously another part of the little EsportsTalk packages, you have to be as fucking vanilla and pathetic as possible. They don't even swear. They frick and heck. It's like talking to a fucking Tumblr refugee.
I assume they're also scared of like fucking getting demonetized or whatever, because I know I will dominate like Pierce's editor to like edit out every swear or something for the same reason, like just scared one video will get demonetized.
Well, which also
kind of says it all about their brand, doesn't it?
I was just going to say,
in theory, that work should be the work you shouldn't worry about getting monetized, because you're on the front lines trying to report the incident. But no, all you care about is the money.
But not even that. It just means that their business model is still monetizing a YouTube channel,
which is the worst possible monetization strategy people don't know.
Yeah. Well, it simply isn't a business model.
No, it's garbage.
It's YouTube's business model.
It's why they have to do 2 videos a day, like you say, mate. That's enough said.
Yeah. So yeah, it's it's anyway. So for those that missed it, I worked a Rocket League event, and because I had the temerity to be hired by G2 to work a Rocket League event, which went very well. The Rocket League fans have never forgiven me for blocking someone on Twitter, another heinous crime, as you know, in the worlds of social media addiction and mental illness. So they all started attacking what I was doing. And so that was the drama of the day. EsportsTalk had to wade in and give their opinion on it because listen, if EsportsTalk if EsportsTalk are in a forest and don't repeat everything that's already been said on social media, does it make a sound? So that's how they approach the situation. So they walk in, give their fucking, not even opinions, they just read the tweets. Hilariously saying, by the way, I shouldn't stoop to the levels of people on Twitter. Now here's an 8-minute video of me reading those opinions from those same people on Twitter. That was deemed journalistic. But then, you see, they also used a clip of me like grieving the death of a friend. I was very fucked up, PTSD and substance abuse, and I'd been awake for a few days and just stupidly.
Literally not in part of. If people don't know, not only not in any context part of Richard's work, but not even on his fucking channel. In fact, it's a show where streamers just give their opinions. So what relevance that? This is where dickheads like Jay Clucky still never got through their thick skull. What Richard tried to do him a solid and fucking teach him that lesson in that interview he did in like 2017. What he was trying to tell you dumb motherfucker, is certain things are not in the interest of the public and have no relevance to what someone is famous for. So as a result, it doesn't matter how many AWP shots, more hits or misses, it is irrelevant whether you think he is cheating on his wife. That is fucking irrelevant to who he is known as a public figure as. Similarly, what would the relevance be of Richard getting hired for Rocket League based on some comments he made on a streamer podcast, wholly unrelated, and as you say,
a year ago,
in an incredibly uncharitable fucking context if you're just going to present it the way they did?
Well, and so you also have to remember, right? So here's the thing. If Trainwrecks was a big Rocket League personality, fair enough. Okay. Trainwrecks' opinion suddenly becomes valid.
You might have swayed their opinion, community and stuff. Yeah,
sure.
Of course.
I mean, it wasn't made in a timely fashion or anything like that. So, I mean, I would argue it's irrelevant based on the fact that it happened prior to the event. And in a year, I think opinions and the Overton window, etc., it all shifts around.
It'd be nonsense. Basically, it would be the equivalent, even if he had been in Rocket League, mate, it would be the equivalent of when they bring up something someone tweeted 10 years ago because they're going to win the Heisman now. Like, you're doing it just to stop winning the Heisman, not because it was in anyone's interest. Like, no one in the other 9 years would have cared, would they?
But, so he's got nothing to do with Rocket League. Train really has nothing to do with esports, if we're honest about it. He is just
I only know him from the streamer world, mate.
He's a variety streamer who does the most popular podcast on Twitch and, plays games, and he's been doing GTA roleplay recently. He's not really an esports guy, he dips his toe in and out. He's a fan, essentially, of esports, but, doesn't follow it religiously. And he's certainly not a journalist. So which would be the other area you would say, well, if a journalist says this about another journalist, which is kind of an interesting area we're going into, because that would make my opinion about all of you guys valid, based on your own editorial standards, which of course they are. But, so there was no reason to include the clip. Now, I made a video about it, pointing this out and saying, could we not weaponize people's grief against them? Could we sort of at least draw a line in the sand and just do a public apology? To which Hunter Grooms replied, and don't worry, this will become public later on. He said, first of all, I'm willing to apologize private, but never in public.
What a bitch. What an actual bitch. That's, by the way, if people don't know, that is the default MO of these people. And the reason why is obvious, because like Richard said before, right, they want to maintain all the relationships, but they want to have their cake and eat it. So in this case, they want to insult him publicly and then just privately get like the okay that it's cool to keep going,
Yeah,
it's pretty simple. I made this rule years ago, and everyone knows how it works. You do it publicly on a video, then you apologize publicly on a video. Then you set the standard. Go ahead and do it. That's how journalism works.
Yeah, well, and I explained it to him, and I said, listen, mate. Like, just, I know I'll give you a little journalistic lesson. I'll try and bring you up to standard because I did it for Jake in the past as well. The rule is where you make the error is where you make the apology. It's
perfectly reasonable.
It's a rule as old as time. And even then, modern journalism gamifies the shit out of that because the lurid headlines on page 1 and the apologies on page 32. But still, the principle is upheld.
Yeah, it still means something that you were published in that paper, that they had to retract what they said, even if it's only you who sees it, like you say. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, listen, I'll apologize privately, never apologize publicly. I also consider what you did with your video to be slanderous, and therefore I consider it equal. We're equal. It's a score draw.
Right, first of all, I've just got a couple of quick things to say there. Number one, this is how you know this person is a piece of shit human being. Because they're either saying to Richard, well, I don't actually believe that what I said was wrong, but I'll apologize to you just so that you personally might like me more and favor me. Or it's the other way around, and I do actually agree. What I said was wrong, maybe morally and professionally, but I won't actually correct it within my work because my work's not about morality or professionalism. So that's one angle. And here's the second angle. Just the way the guy explained his logic there to Richard tells you everything you need to know about him. He believes that if Richard does something fucked up, it's 1-1 on the scoreboard. No, it is. You've both done something fucked up by your logic, you dumb motherfucker. Like, in no universe does him saying anything about you make what you did fine. It'll never work that way. Like, there's nobody I can go and murder now that makes them murdering someone before equal. Like, it'll never work that way.
I mean, to be fair, I did bring the topic of score up because I said, if you do an apology, I consider that a score draw, is what I said. And he said, no, I think actually what makes it 1-1 is, me slandering.
His logic still makes no sense.
Yeah. So anyway, I took the bit of the stream, which hadn't blown up because, but I made it a YouTube video and it got spread across social media and people retweeted it, used their tactics, shall we say. And that video got, ratioed, because they were caught in 4K and then they were down bad and all the other moronic phrases.
Sadly, it's not a real thing, is it, on YouTube? Like, you still help them get all those downvotes, but whatever. I guess symbolically, they took the L.
Symbolically, they took an L. There's another one. Thanks, Duncan.
There you go.
And so, anyway, I messaged him again, said, look, will you just publicly apologize, please? Like, I ask again, like that, it doesn't have to get silly, like, because we're not even at stage.
Really. DEFCON 0 is far away, boy. Yeah. This is like the fucking amber warning at worst, But
anyway, they
can get a lot worse.
Here's what they decided to do, and I've sent Sam the picture, and you can see it here. They decided, in light of me requesting an apology and making a YouTube video pointing out that it was a shocking lapse in editorial standards, this is what they chose to do. Oh, and I'll also add in that same conversation, he also said, and you can sort of hold off on the journalistic lessons because we don't call ourselves journalists. They've done that classic trick, one that I know you love. It's a tale as old as time in esports. You want all of the prestige of being a journalist. You want the pass to go to the events. You want all of that, but you want none of the responsibility.
Good news, by the way. Here's the thing, Rich, it's working for me. This is now on record. So everyone who takes part in the Esports Awards each year, when it comes to those two categories, coverage site of the year and journalist of the year, I don't want to see anyone from EsportsTalk nominated because they themselves don't consider themselves journalists. Yep. So
I think
on that one.
I think that's very fair. I think it's very valid.
Right,
so anyway, they put up a comment, which was, as a team, we decided to remove a clip from this video featuring Trainwrecks and his thoughts on Richard Lewis. The story itself doesn't lose its accuracy or fairness without this inclusion. I mean, implying it had accuracy and fairness in the first place. And it distracts from the core discussion of Rocket League and the community reaction to his hiring. As the video, on a whole, features fair reporting on the community response and provides a clear perspective of multiple angles, all of them negative about me, of course, we will not be taking the video down. I didn't ever ask for that, by the way. The clip's inclusion was wholly in service of providing an example of the opinion people hold of the discussed behavior. While in private discussions with our team, Lewis has disregarded any potential personal impact of it being included. We feel it is the correct... I don't even know what that means. We feel it is the correct decision at the time, considering the surrounding circumstances of the clip itself. We're disappointed by the highly misleading and intellectually dishonest way Richard Lewis has chosen to portray
these
our
cunts
content.
Are going to die for it, and they're the victim. This is unbelievable. This is why, by the way, guys, all those years, if it's been about half a decade now, you've all been asking me on Twitter, why didn't you unblock Jake Lucky? Why do you not mention EsportsTalk? Because these people are such scum that to even it's like those old fucking quotes of no point, don't bother fucking wrestling with a pig. You get dirty and the pig likes it. These are the fucking reason those comments exist. These motherfuckers are unbeatable in the sense that they have no shame. They don't care whether people actually respect them because they have no talent to actually be respected for accomplishing something beyond clout chasing. And when you even beat them, they'll just go, that doesn't count. I win still. So it's just wasting your time. Yeah. And by the way, it goes without saying, here's the final reason why I never wasted anyone's time on it. Because the kind of person who likes their content didn't do it because they like high quality journalism and ethically sound work. So as a result, showing them that it's not high quality journalism and not ethically sound is going to have fuck all impact on that person. The moron who clicked that video who's 14 years old and follows Fortnite is just going to click it next time, if anything. Now, it's spicier. Like, if anything, it probably helps their brand.
Well, I don't think that's how that's going to work. I mean, one of the points I made as well, and they seem to have listened to this, was stop wearing esports organizations' jerseys in your news channel, because by definition, in the same way that the BBC has a code of standards and practice, I can't walk in and do a sports report wearing a Newcastle shirt, you know what I mean, or having any
wait a minute. So they're not going to take lessons, Rich, because they're not journalists, but they are going to take a lesson that would only apply to journalists, like wearing a brand of
yeah
so, these guys are just lost the plot completely.
But since I pointed out and I made a big listen, I feel sorry for Dignitas. I need to say this because I got friends who work over there, like Heather, Sapphire works.
I hate them, so keep going.
Fiflar.
Not those specific people. By the way, if people don't know, they're one of the main orgs. That's why I left Flashpoint. So fuck those guys forever. I'm going to be there when that shit sinks in the fucking ocean. And I'm going to be the one who takes a piss on it as it does.
Good stuff. So anyway, yeah. So I've got some friends over there. And they felt really bad about it. And they reached out. And then eventually the marketing director reached out and said that they're going to make sure their logo's not used and stuff like that in the future, and they don't endorse anything that they said. So I reckon they've probably been told by a few orgs, don't include our logos on your news because we don't want to come along for the ride if you endorse a particular view or fuck up editorially, which by the way is the reason you have that standard and practice in place in the first place in broadcast journalism. Do you know, people were even saying to me, what, so he couldn't wear this t-shirt here, or if I wear an England top, I represent the views of the England football team. And it's if you're on a news channel, yeah, if you're on a TV broadcasting channel, yeah. And probably as well, just to think about it, even if it was a fun kind of, sports thing and you wanted to have the air of neutrality, probably, yeah, but certainly on something that claims to be news, definitely. That is, and it goes the other way too. If you do news, you have to uphold the standard that the sort of editors say, like BBC people having to wear a poppy or a Black Lives Matter symbol or whatever it is when they go on the news. It's something that is dictated because there are these standards and ethics that journalists are supposed to uphold. So anyway, that's what they've come up with. They have decided that the perfect response to me just requesting a public apology for using an out-of-context clip of me at the worst moment in my life was to say that me, Richard Lewis, award-winning journalist, is intellectually dishonest and misleading people. I am misleading people, apparently. So that was where I chose violence. Well, they chose violence this week. So that's going to get interesting. That's going to get spicy.
Mate, that's all that needs to be said right there, right? Of all the things they've done over the years, here's the thing. On the other angles, they can disagree with us. They can say, well, I think it's fine to, sensationalize a headline because I didn't say it was that way. I just implied it. Listen, there's a million angles they could get out of this shit. But the idea that Richard has them nailed to the wall where they're literally using his grief from a real life incident, nothing to do with his work, to imply that he shouldn't work in a specific game and then tying it into some bullshit angle of and young people watch the game and you insult young people, therefore question mark. The fact they're on this level, right? And they can't even just say, you know what, I agree. Unilaterally, I just apologize for that video. I won't talk about the rest of my work, but on that one, I was in the wrong. They can't even take the L on it. They can't take the L.
They won't do it. So we'll see where that goes next. But
there's a lot more coming with them. Don't worry. Yeah. Like I've told people in the past, a lot of this was behind the scenes. They're on the list, but it's just they're low down because they are literal shit huffers. That's all they are. They're not important. So I got people like HLTV.org to put in the fucking frying pan. Once I'm finished with these cunts, then I'll take 5 minutes out of my time to show you what EsportsTalk is really like. Because I don't even need to go deep. If I give you my top 5 reasons, anyone who actually cares about ethics, it'll be game over already. It'll be literally game over. You should just see some of the things they've done. It's outrageous.
So can't wait. So look, I'll tell you what we will do. Let's talk a little bit about Counter-Strike. Let's do some stories. The one of the big stories that happened that you alluded to right in the entry, of course, was Cloud9 is gone. It's officially over. They've released their team. They've released their coach. Henry G has parted ways. And bizarrely, there was obviously a lot of Reddit threads about this, and I'm going to use this to segue into something else that's topical. But there were a lot of threads where Reddit basically investigated Reddit and found that Reddit had done nothing wrong, actually, in retrospect.
I love that. Who are these guys, Riot Games?
Yeah. There was a lot of threads basically saying that, some people were making threads going, yeah, did we go a bit too far with the Cloud9 hate? Maybe a little bit overboard? And people were going, no, I don't think so, actually. I think Henry tweeted, and so it was all fair game, which again just points to social media addiction and mental illness in the modern era. So anyway, I want to just set the table, as we always do with discussions like this, before I bring you in. And I want to make it clear for all the people who are already typing, God, he's such a hypocrite. He's such a hypocrite. He says people are soft for reacting to criticism, and now he's going to defend Henry G and Cloud9 from the criticism. Right, let me just tell you what was going on and why it's different, right? A few people saying, you're shit at a video game, right? Or people saying this team should be dropped. All fair game. I would even say that let's laugh at Cloud9 thread, which was insane. I'd even say that's within the window of fair game.
Keep it lighthearted, yeah, why not?
What wasn't fair game were the hundreds, if not thousands, of alleged Cloud9 fans that would routinely be emailing Jack, emailing Cloud9, mass spamming them on Twitter, CCing in Henry in a lot of them. And basically...
We've had a lag.
There we go. You lagged a second, Richard. Yeah. It was when you just said about CCing in Henry, if you start there again.
No, right. Okay, yeah. So, and they would CC Henry into these hate messages. And basically, then, saying these outrageous things. And this started happening like a month or two into the job. Like, and so the issue isn't that people were kind of like flaming them or saying the team was bad. It's that they then went to that extreme. And these were the fans of the org, kind of basically nudging them in the direction of, we may as well drop a CS team right now. I mean, there was all the economic factors as well, sure. But then on top of that, there were other teams like Evil Geniuses who make more. I mean, I'll give you an example of how people don't understand the economics of CS. Extreme Mums, the fucking Australian team? Well, Extreme Mums make more on average than the Cloud9 roster ever did. So while you're talking about waste some money, I haven't and the standard of players that or teams that they're losing to is absolutely ridiculous. And yet Henry G had to kind of deal with that. Know that. Never say anything because it's unprofessional. You can't just say, look, this team makes more, that org makes more. And never criticized for their project that's, been a failure so far. Same for Evil Geniuses. Think about them. I would probably put the EG salary about $30,000 a month average for all of them. When they got picked up, remember they were purchased for $3 million. It started out good. It ain't good now. And yet, where's the 3 hate threads a day about Evil Geniuses? They don't exist. What about Fnatic? Signing Brolan to 3-year deals. We've got this going on. No criticism for them as they plummet down the rankings. And so you end up basically having to say that the community hypocrisy is the problem. It's not that you said Henry was bad at his job. It's not that you said the team was bad. It's not you said the players were bad. It's not you said Jack made a bad decision. All fair game. It's the fact that you were actively petitioning Cloud9 to fire the entire team after having spent the money, right? And you don't do that for other teams. You don't even make that observation. I feel a little bit bad because
You know what's mad? I've even realised this. Who are the 2 orgs? You're going to know this because it was on the context of this show. See if you can guess the 2 I'm thinking of immediately. Because when you say that, right, I'm trying to think it's true because most orgs, it was never known what the salary. In fact, it's often not even known the range. But there were 2 orgs in history who famously, it was in early 2017, there's the clue, went ahead and sort of implied like we make the most money. Do you remember who the 2 were?
Shit.
I'll give you the clue. The story was one was the one that was newly announced. It was a new org, and then because of that, it triggered the contracts of the other one. It was North and VP.
Yeah, it was VP and VP.
Now, the reason why I bring that up is notice the trend there, Richard. North and Virtus, probably the 2 other most criticised teams of all time, on exactly this basis. Only when they knew the salaries did they do this. So what's sad is this is another classic example of this is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have it like the NFL, where me and Richard could have a great discussion about a team based on what their salary cap is and who they had available and what market. We can't have that discussion because instead teams are going to learn from this lesson. North, VP, Cloud9. They're going to, you know what? Even if I pay my team twice as much, fucking just don't say it. We gain nothing from it.
And sure, and I mean, look, one of the things we definitely do is criticize players based on how much salary they make, right? Because you know, when you see play, and this is why I do it. You know, elite level athletes on elite level salaries are expected to turn in elite level performances. That's why they're being paid the elite level money. It's just that simple. Now, you know, you'll notice we don't bang on a top 30 team making $5,000 a month very often on the show. You know, mostly we save praise. Our worst criticisms, very much like that disappointed teacher in school who knew you had an extra 5% to give. We look at the great teams like Na'Vi, for example, right now, a team where we admire all the parts of it and its history and its prestige and its pedigree and the fact they've got simple playing for them and electronic playing for them. And we want them to succeed, but we see them sabotage themselves through their own fucking stubbornness and stupidity.
The most frustrating, right?
And so we have to criticize, you know, so they will get the worst criticism. That is how it works. That is a tale as old as time. I shouldn't be surprising anyone with that. And so with Cloud9, the fact is, here's the reality about Cloud9, right? I'm going to give you the definitive timeline. And remember, because my mate was involved, I was there. I watched every single second of every Cloud9 game, very often watching them with Henry, because obviously he couldn't even be there with his team. So think of all the experience and knowledge and motivation they were even deprived of just by that fact alone. But so here's the definitive timeline. Cloud9 hire Henry G and Kassad. Henry G says, we're going to build a team. He decides to be playful about it, says, I'm going to build a Colossus. He had 20 days, I think it was, before the start of Flashpoint to build a team from scratch. Not like, you know, like we're going to buy 5 players that are already playing with each other. As in, you are going to have to take disparate parts and basically build a team, like literally build a team from scratch. And you're doing it in about 3 weeks. So that's mad. That's already mental. But that was like the deadline that, you know, he was working on to get him registered over at Flashpoint, right? So he's out there. Now, because everyone knows he's on a deadline, and these team owners, by the way, one of the worst things we ever did to Counter-Strike, and just esports in general, was let the Americans fucking come and basically dictate how we do business. It's actually probably the story about the world and history, but that's too profound a point to get into now, because they only want to do things that they get guaranteed profit on. And so as a result, the entire business in the industry's changed because they're also playing with house money because it's all VC. So what they do is they go from esport to esport, inflate the market, blow it up, and then when it doesn't yield a return from them being number one by using their fake money, they then go, oh, this scene's dead, fuck it, and they peace out. And
I've got a little detail to add to that as well, because that's a very good characterization, but I'd also add this in. The real worst part of what they do as well is that it's the knock-on effect, which is because they inflate the market, now other companies, by the way, some of these ironically used to be the Cloud9s of the world. Some of the companies out there don't need VC money, and they were actually top of the game without any. So what they do is, because they've inflated it, now even that guy has to fucking get VC money or he can't compete. So the joke of it is the most irresponsible businessmen in esports just dragged everyone into some mental war of attrition where we all just bleed money for no reason.
Yeah, and not to mention, right, over in Europe where the orgs had actually built things, and even, you know, I even include orgs I don't like in this. Say what you will about Na'Vi, they built something, they built a brand, they've been profitable, they've been decent with talent, you know, they've made it work in a market in an area that's full of problems, not least of all fucking corruption and all sorts of stuff. But they've done it, and we've seen other teams do it. Gambit, who might even talk about a little bit in the show. But, you know, so they were doing it. People in Europe, Fnatic, you know, a prestigious org, but the dirty secret that everyone knows, they don't have a lot of money.
Of course.
And they've been in financial dire straits, not in ancient history. That was how that whole Jens Hilger's G2 stuff came about. So they have had in 2015 like one of the best teams in CS, and they've always been there or thereabouts. It's only got really bad recently. They've always remained competitive, and they've done it in this skewed landscape, this skewed global landscape where Americans are just going, yeah, I can pay someone $40,000 a month salary. I can just
respect
have them
for the Fnatic org in both games have been amazing at that shit, mate.
Absolutely. You know, it was the Europeans, right? This tells you everything that you need to know about the sort of dichotomy, or rather the paradigm that we've got here. And that is that the Americans are always jerking off talking about Moneyball and how they want to get value, but they just spend money hand over fist because they know deep down in their hearts it's not theirs. Their VC money coming into the scene forced everyone else in every other market to have to play Moneyball. And the teams that have been successful at it are the teams that are succeeding now, right? So we're even better than you when you have all the advantages. That's how shit these business people are. And yet, like I said, they just blow up the market. It doesn't. They're like, right, we're the number one team now. We're spending the most money. Do we get any of that back? Oh, no, we're not. Okay, right. This game's dead. Next game, Valorant. Yeah, see you there. And they just hop around and hop around. So you have to understand with this, with this like Cloud9 situation that we've had emerge. You know, I kind of feel that actually all this nonsense about, oh, they overspent, they spent too much money. They were spending proportionate to what was available in the market right now.
That is literally what anyone who tried to build a team like that would have ended up paying. Yes. In fact, I've always said this about the Essetag one. Everyone who's watched the show can confirm it. I always say, even though, of course, they massively overpaid, you just were not going to get a player like Essetag, or Bobsky for that matter, without paying money like that. That's just where the market was, unfortunately. And even worse, like you sort of alluded to, but you didn't say it overtly, it's even worse when other teams know you're on a fucking deadline, mate. Then they're going to rinse you till the end of the year. If they think, like, MIBR and FaZe Clan, like, I can ride this out for 6 months, well, then maybe I can get a discount. I'm not getting any discount if I know I have to sign this player within 2 weeks.
But that's what happened. So because everybody knew they were on a deadline, that was the other point I was going to get to, was and the agents knew they were on a deadline, quite crucially, because another aspect in CS, yes, we all want a player union. Yes, we all want agents. But unfortunately, what we didn't need were agents coming into the space who didn't even understand the market. Let me just tell you straight up, the average agent you talk to in Counter-Strike is a fucking, I mean, they're a nana. They don't even know where the fuck they're at. They come in and they go, right, so I think we'll base salary, $70,000 a month. They can never be dropped from the team. You know, they make all these like, outrageous demands and they go, and that is final. And then you go, well, obviously no one's going to pay that. And they go, all right, okay. Tell you what, then we'll cut that in half. And then, you know, it's like Alan Partridge asking for a fucking second season of fucking TV. It's nonsense. They don't even have a negotiating point because if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. No one's just, it's not like football where you might like break the bank to get that one player because you make it back in merch sales over 5 years. You know, he wins you a fucking Scudetto or whatever. You know, it doesn't work like that in esports. That's not our business model. So winning things actually is the tiniest part of the pie because we've allowed it to get that way. So anyway, these agents were then really fleecing everyone out there. So yeah, I'm pretty sure there is a world where Henry G could have had like Nico and Hunter. But if you think about it proportionally, the money they would have paid would have made the success window even smaller.
Oh, for sure.
And I'll tell you straight up, if you look at what G2 are doing, I guarantee Carlos is going to be the last of the big spenders. And when CSGO is dead next year sometime, he's going to look back and go, that was really stupid, actually. That was very financially
may well be the case. Yeah. Unfortunately.
So anyway, so you're getting all your other team orgs know they can ask for outrageous buyouts because you're on a fucking deadline. All the agents know they can ask for amazing, ridiculous salaries because you're on a fucking deadline, and you are still on that deadline. That deadline is not changing. Your first and final failure as GM would be to fail to even create the team in time to register for the league. So that's what you got. And of course, you can't say the reality, which is, listen, I like these players. I think it's very good. But there were a few players who weren't even our third choice in that position. You can't announce that. You can't say that.
You kill all the hype if you do, of course.
Well, not even that. Just what a terrible indictment to the player. How do you feel? How would you feel if I said, listen, we picked up a bunch of journalists and we have got Duncan Shields as well. You know, on an announcement, you'd feel like, what the fuck am I, chopped liver, you know? And it would really sour the relationship right from the get-go. So, listen, I think a lot of those guys, and the mad part of it is, the guys that provided the most value to the org were the ones that cost the least money. So there is no way on God's green earth that the Cloud9 project should be remembered, as it has been labeled on Reddit multiple times, one of the biggest esports failures of all time. I've seen it referred to. Funnily enough, I even think EsportsTalk called it that in one of their videos. Not 100% sure. I can't remember it. I don't really watch their stuff. It just passes through me like fucking bad dysentery. But
also, the reason why that as well is such a mad hyperbole is because, and by the way, this ties in with another thing we've said many, many times on these shows. I'm so sick and tired of stupid-ass players who don't understand the concept of guaranteed money from real sports like the NFL. Like, y'all are all just sitting on that fucking... Who's that? Oh, fuck, I forget his name now. Who's that guy, the Taysom Hill or whatever, where the one who everyone's like, oh, please, we must have him and be a quarterback. And you know, he got this massive deal now and 0 years are guaranteed, Rich. So, as in, if he gets injured in game one, they just go, see you, you're on your bike, you're getting off in. That's what esports contracts are like. So the same dickhead who's gonna let his agent go to fucking the sum over the base salary never bothers to go, what happens if I ever get benched? Well, I'll never get benched because I'm a 19-year-old pro player, and of course I'll always be amazing. So what they don't know is, like, half these teams, like, if I had to guess, Cloud9 actually in the end probably didn't even pay that much money. I mean, look, they've cancelled all the salaries. I'm sure they just paid everyone a small severance, and they didn't even end up having to pay all those. So you know the best part, by the way, guys, you could have laughed at Cloud9 and Henry G and the players. They could have at least gotten paid and you could have laughed at them. They're just going to get a few months now and have to fuck off, some of them probably to mockery and Counter-Strike. By the way, here's my biggest problem with the whole topic, Rich, is people have done the thing they always do. This is why when people pretend Reddit's not hivemind, it is itself a hivemind expression to say that. Because what they always ignore is this, is that the person, basically, here's how I'll give everyone the little cheat sheet as to how Reddit actually works and how social media actually work. You come online, right, and you're you. You only care about you, your thoughts, and what you're interested in. But the problem is, all the stuff being presented to you is only at best tangentially related to you and what you're interested in. And sometimes there'll be overlap. But you know what? There isn't enough overlap for everyone, even with these algorithms. That's what social media is. That's why it's mental illness gone mad. People have just made a solipsistic universe, but it's the motherfucking internet. It isn't solipsism. Those are real people. That's the entire world, you daft cunt. This isn't a single player game like a fucking visual novel from Japan where you're just interacting with a bunch of fake NPCs. Ironically, it feels like that is what Twitter's like for me, but enough of that. So here's the problem, right? When people do this, they always do this thing where even though they were being a cunt just about Henry G and trying to hurt his feelings, they'll then like Mott and Bailey all the way back to like, I'm just criticising a team in a sports context. Because here's the problem. If any of you actually criticised the team the way I criticised them in my job, you could never have said the things you said about Cloud9. Because a rule I've always had is beyond jokes, which themselves already carry the connotation that this is not serious, it is a joke, I always give people their due. So to tie in a Richards example before, a player I banged on loads because I knew his salary was Smith's when he was in G2 and when he was the coach of G2. Now, if Smith's had gone and been the AWPer for LDLC at the time, the third best French team, or he'd gone and been a coach for a low-level team where his experience alone could have added a massive amount, I would never have criticised him that way because it would now be inappropriate in the context of how I'm criticising him. I was criticising him because he's a motherfucking check stealer at the time for one of the biggest orgs and a team that when he was a player could have done so much more if he was anyone else in his job. And on top of that, I knew he had sort of a fucked up mentality. So it was like, well, this is just that's all the check boxes I need. So similarly, right, now let's come to criticising Cloud9 because you guys love criticising people fairly, right? Here's how you criticise Cloud9 fairly. Never anyone ever said this, by the way. This might be the best bad team to ever play CSGO. That is a real statement. I have never seen a team win so few best of 3 series against top 10 ranked teams in the world, but come so close to doing so and even beat those teams sometimes on their map. Sometimes, by the way, even just like outright have the odd map where you just emphatically beat a team way better than you. The amount of times Cloud9 did that, right? Instead, what was it presented as? Because technically, the ultimate, whether it's a W or an L, would be an L. People treated them like every time they were getting 2-0'd and 16-1'd every map, including their own map every time. That was really the way these people actually behaved. And by the way, like you're saying, some of the knock-on things they did to Henry G and Cloud9 were as if that was the state. Whereas I actually look at that team, and one of the reasons I'm mad they left CSGO is I feel like they were still one move away from actually being really fucking good at Counter-Strike.
They were.
Like, they were not a bad team. So that's why that whole angle's bullshit. They weren't just like, if they'd have said it's just about the money that had been paid, fair enough. It's just about Henry making that statement, fair enough. No, but you couldn't even give them their due in the server. You couldn't even do that.
No, and I think the other thing to remember is here, right? Like, one of the things that's vitally important for teams is getting everyone in a room, being able to, like, body language, build relationships, have those little team building moments in and around it, and it's especially important in esports to have that. This team never got a boot camp. I know people always go, but they did, back when it was with the Woxic lineup. Which it's not. You have to.
And that was at the beginning, wasn't it? Like,
that was at the very beginning.
Sporadically, obviously, like every now and then you want to have one, don't you?
Keep in mind the original plan as well was that they were going to be completely set up in LA, have their own, sports center type area, like fucking Complexity do, and that was all. That was all the original plan. That COVID just kept dragging and dragging, and travel restrictions just kept dragging and dragging, and you couldn't get these guys in a room together. So you've got people who, like, this is a team that never had a boot camp, never even got to have, like, Henry behind him, changed coach, changed AWPer pretty quick on, had to convert Esther, right, who... Listen, whatever you want to say about his performances, he proved himself a pretty fucking versatile player, in my opinion.
True.
He changed role like 3 times in 6 months, right? And that, I think he started on the entry, then they stopped, then he moved across to being more supportive, and then he stopped that, and then he was an AWPer, and, that's where it ended. So... I think, honestly, like, the Cloud9 stuff is, like, it's so ridiculous how far it went. And again, by all means, criticize them. By all means, if you're a Cloud9 fan, say they disappointed you. But remember, in the grand scheme of things, they were 1 overtime against Na'Vi, who they nearly 2-0'd, the number 1 team in the world, in the groups of ESL Pro League. They were 1 overtime away from being through the groups. And I tell you, if they had got out of the groups, I think they're still around. And so when you frame it like that, really, guys, like, you're going to bang on everyone. I mean, the level of vitriolic hatred I saw was definitely beyond the pale, especially from people who claim to support the team. And also, before we get... I was just going to say, just before I leave it, I also want to just point out, because I know you'll appreciate this, the rank hypocrisy. Loads of people were saying, pick up Chaos, give those guys a chance.
Oh, of course,
Pick up Extra Salt, give those guys a chance. Henry went out and got Floppy and Xeppaa and gave those guys a chance. And you shit on those guys, you shit on Henry for giving them a chance, and you shit on the team they were embedded in. So, you don't mean what you say.
No, that's why my tweet today was phrased the way it was, because I basically was thinking about this topic today. And this is the sad thing I've realised. This is like that famous meme online where it's like, inadvertently ending up agreeing with Joseph Stalin to own the Republicans. Like, you're like that meme. Like, you're so stupid, you will go to any lengths and become anything to defeat what you thought was your original enemy, not knowing that in doing so, you're the joke. Like, guess what? Everyone who thought it was hilarious that Flashpoint and Cloud9 were failing, you took the L, you dumb motherfucker, if you actually like CSGO. Like, all of us took an L because it's CSGO that's dying, but you're taking it as well. Where's the joke there? That's like you're stood there and it's like that fucking meme I've posted in the past about CSGO players and salaries. Like, you're just stood there on the side of the boat that's tipped up, when the side that's sinking, you're going, that side's sinking. You're on the boat as well, dickhead. You sink with the rest of us. So when CSGO's fucked and all dead and just ESL runs a little safe. By the way, if you don't know, good news, ESL will still stick around. They'll just get to own the entire scene like they do in StarCraft 2. And you know what that'll mean, by the way? Get ready for this one, pro players who are so dumb they would waste hours of our time instead of playing a match because they don't want sound files to be shared. You're going to love the fucking prize money breakdowns in the next few years. Tell you what, when ESL has 89% of the fucking scene and Blast gets a little sliver that they have, tell you the first thing they're going to do is chop out that fucking the prize winnings, because you get your salary anyway. And who do they make the deal with? Oh, that's right, you had your chance to decide which leagues you played in. Your team decides what league you play in. So what will happen is that money, I can tell you from being in Flashpoint recently, that money that used to be the hundreds of thousands in prize money, that will now just be the appearance fee for your org, because they're already paying you, mate. So you're going to take the L as well. Enjoy the next few years, all you dumb motherfucker players.
Yep. And so it brings us into the segue. We go from vitriolic hatred that went completely too far to
not the name of our segment, but that could be a new segment name. That could be a new segment name.
Yeah, but enough about by the numbers for the past 6 years. Yeah. And we'll segue into this other one where people were trying to sort of conflate it with Cloud9 and going, yeah, we are going a bit too far. We are going a bit too ham. Because evil geniuses lost a game.
This
Hilariously,
is the Tarik thing, right?
Yeah. Hilariously, they lost a game against Windstrike, which of course was the team that I do believe beat Cloud9 in one of these cups. That prompted everyone to do the old $20 million for this. $20 million for this. No threads. Let's laugh at evil geniuses. No threads. $20 million for this. No, none of that. But anyway, what did happen was some people on Twitter did say to Tarik, lol, because Tarik did a fucking horrible play. And let me just see if I can actually find the clip for you, Sam, so we can play it. I think this is it.
It is funny. Like, put it this way. Again, we'll show you how you actually do it. Like, it is a funny clip. Let's be real. Like, it's hilarious. I'd be laughing my ass off, obviously.
Yeah, let me. I should have had it ready for the show.
It's one of those clips I always tell people if I'm ever doing a game. Like, there's certain moments in the game that happen to everyone, and you just pray you didn't have the observer watching you. Like, a classic one's obviously you try and knife someone, you fucking. Like, this is like probably one of the worst I've seen in pro play. Like, this just doesn't get noticed. It's all fine, but the fact that it was literally like what the observer was watching is so brutal when you see what he does. Like,
yeah. So here you go, Sam. We can 3, 2, 1 it if you want.
All right, one sec.
Yeah.
All right.
Back here. The risk.
3, 2, 1, go.
There's only one player back here.
Yep.
The risk then comes up to a fact of, listen, are they going to let the backstab come in and swamp on the B side? Tarik's going to hear rotations inbound from Nickelback. And he's
No way
in the
checks
corner.
this.
No way he does. Oh, Tarik. He's going to find even
Like,
more
this
things.
is,
He's
for
gonna
all
step
the
against
peanut
entire
brain
60
claims,
forces. This whole round could fall apart.
this was brilliant.
the first part's genius, yeah.
Tarik should be on for a couple of kills. If he gets the trigger discipline right, this is 2 easy frags on a Forester in the AWP.
I was just even a real commentator. Get me out.
Yeah.
I think some partridge shit.
And there you go. Well, unfortunately, that clip was it's
They saved him, if anything.
yeah,
on that one.
yeah, exactly. It's
It
worse.
gets worse, guys.
It's worse than actually it looks with the moment afterwards. Now, the point is, right, far be it from me to suggest that this proves actually there are fundamental differences between Valorant and Counter-Strike, and the skills aren't transferable. This play was obviously highlighted because it's horrible. I mean, this is someone that is again being paid that elite level salary that we talk about, making a very big mistake that ultimately went on to cost his team that map. Now, it's inconsequential. It's an online cup. I mean, you shouldn't really, you'll see top tier. We even said this, didn't we, when Cloud9 lost, when we talked about them last, we said you could easily see an Evil Geniuses or a Team Liquid or someone like this losing against this opposition in this scenario.
When Gambit won motherfucking IEM Katowice, by the way, since then, we're like winning all the matches, right? They've lost one series since the beginning of Katowice now. It was a fucking one of these cups to Copenhagen Flames. So that tells you all you need to know about the online era. The team nobody in Europe can figure out, like literally Sonic's just up all night tearing his hair out. Copenhagen Flames is just going, all right, what, we just beating the IEM Katowice? Like, mate, anyone can lose in these cups. Stay out of these fucking home sweet home. Get out of those cups if you can't take a loss. Because everyone's going to take losses in these ones. They're brutal. They're really brutal.
And it's always been like that. That's another tale as old as
played
time.
at that level in the past. Yeah, we were all like segregated away.
It's like, remember those 128 team open qualifiers all online? Yeah, enjoy those. Like, teams you've never heard of, players you've never heard of, beating some of the best players in the world historically. So anyway, the point is this, Tarik was rightfully mocked for that horrible play. And he basically did a tweet, one of those self-pitying tweets that pros like to do. Right. Listen, I'll call it real. I don't give a fuck. Thanks for kicking a man while he's down. I already know I lost us the game. You aren't perfect either. Shit happens. And then he followed it up 18 hours later, saying, didn't expect nearly this much positive reinforcement. Thanks for anyone who had something nice to say. I do appreciate it. Now, obviously, maybe he does need a confidence boost or whatever. But for me, I'm just going to come back to evil geniuses and all of their problems. I'm sorry, guys. This is soft as shit. This is pathetic. You guys have had all the benefits, all the advantages. You've been one of the few teams that decamped to Europe. You've been one of the few teams that have had the benefit of all being present with each other. You had a 40, 50-day span of no games when you were in Europe in a boot camp situation to work on your tactics. Meanwhile,
even upgraded the roster from the guy who fucking was slumping, everything.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you treated it on and off like a fucking holiday, like I said, based on what I've been told, and nobody likes it. But all your individual performances have gone down. Breezy's still the best thing about the team by a country mile. And I will literally, like, that is like, it's a terrible day for Rain if he goes to Valorant, because that guy's so fucking talented.
For sure.
But, I'll just add, all NA players end up in Valorant in the end. Spoiler, Thanos wins in this version of reality. Like, there's no... we have to exist with the snap. We're not in the Doctor Strange timeline. So anyway, you see that, and you go, well, there's no excuses for EG's failure. Then Ethan skanks you, right? Maybe we say fair enough on that, but don't pretend Joel didn't know it was coming, because he was out there scrimming with people and getting ready for the move for a while.
I'd also heard, like, literally behind the scenes, like, it was known that could happen. It was like a when not if scenario.
Yeah. He'd been talking about it for a while. So, which is another reason why it made this, like, absurd. Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, bloody hell. I've just appeared in Valorant, guys. Like, oh, bloody hell. A top-tier organisation have just picked me up, even though I've never bloody played the game. Come on, don't insult everyone's intelligence on the way out. But it's all right. He's like an influencer now. That's how it works, isn't it? You go to 100 Thieves and nothing else matters. So anyway... You then get Oboe. So you're one of the teams, by the way, that are still active in the marketplace, because the other dirty little secret, which I probably should have talked about with Cloud9, is no one is spending any money anymore.
Yep.
No one is buying any players anymore. No one is taking risk. Right, ask yourself how a player like Flusher stays in free agency.
Oh, mate, I get some super depressing ones. I can't say the names, obviously, but I'm talking like major winners, best coaches in the world. Like, I've got literally like put it this way: if someone came to me tomorrow who was like an oil sheik and said, "Look, I've got like 10 million to invest tomorrow," these would be the people at the top of my shortlist. These people, I'm not joking. Like, the reason they're asking me if there are jobs out there is because when they've asked us nothing. Like, it's you stay at your current org or you fuck off to Valorant. Like,
we have one, right? Let's just lay this on the table before we get back to banging on Tarik, right? We have the worst competitive top 10 in CSGO since the game began.
For sure.
Right? We have the best free agency, the strongest free agency we've ever had in terms of available
agency
talent.
In some cases, well, not even like, available like, for free.
As in, you just pay them the salary. And yet these two things cannot be resolved. It's fucked. It's over, guys. It's over.
Dude, that's why when people say, I knew Flashpoint would fail, then logically you knew Counter-Strike itself was going to fail. Why didn't you explain that? You didn't, because you're too stupid to know the industry. The reason Flashpoint failed, by the way, is because they were the motherfucking canary in the coal mine. If even the orgs with money aren't going to spend, what do you think Fnac's going to do? Fnac doesn't spend big money. They're going to have to get an unknown. That's
I'll add there's a spiteful element to it, because again, these American owners, they only want to run things like a fucking cartel. They don't really want an open market.
I notice they do love selling to each other. Have you noticed that, Richard? Yeah. The American, especially those LCS motherfuckers, they love selling a player to each other. I bet they even give each other discounts to that big cunts.
Oh yeah. So they they tried PEA and that failed, and then they tried Flashpoint essentially and that failed, and so now that's really what's driving Time to Leave. We can't lock the scene down, so we make all the money. Yep. Right, and
they're taking their ball home. They can't play, so fuck it. We're taking our ball home. See ya.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Tarik, another person with a segue in from the unfortunate phrase, they're taking their ball home. They can't play. Fuck it.
Well, technically, I'll give Tarik credit, right? He obviously was genuinely speaking in good faith when he made that statement, because maybe he thought the same thing himself. He crept behind dishonorably, like violating the Bushido code of the samurai. He crept behind people, and instead of announcing that he was there and he would fight them in an honorable one-on-one where the other person was aware of it, he saw the guy's back was turned. He realized it would be totally dishonorable to kick a man while he was literally down below him, and decided to just take mercy. He shot a lot of warning shots. It just turned out he got shot before the real fight could take place. So, fair play, Tarik. You are a legit human being.
I have heard that Tarik does read the Hagakure in his spare time as well. So
I don't even know if he could read that word, mate. Never mind the fucking book. Tarik thinks the Book of Five Rings is Kobe Bryant's autobiography. Straight fire reference. That's not bad.
Good. That's pretty good, Duncan. Well done. We're here all week. Anyway, so he, this then drove into a Reddit discussion, which was, wow,
I love these. Come on.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm doing the best ones at the end. But just the general gist was it sucks to see Tarik down. This is the top comment. It sucks to see Tarik down. He's such a positive energy, always giving it his all, and he still gets flamed for every mistake. A game-losing mistake. A game-losing mistake when he's on all that money.
And a super hilarious one. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
I hate it. I really hate it when fans, like, you know what one of my biggest triggers is? It'll sound mad because to everyone else it'd be so innocuous. It's when fans talk about the elite AWPers in the game and they go, you missed the easy shots. Because here's the thing. If I say that, I mean an easy shot for an elite AWPer. They mean when they play CS at their level, they would hit that shot where obviously they have like 10 times more time. The guy will never hit them back. Like it's fucking 100 ping. Like the reason why that triggers me is this is one of the rare instances where actually even a moron Gold Nova player could go, I probably wouldn't even do that every time. I might get the kill actually. You're right, actually, for once. So the idea that this is the one that's off limits. What? This is the only one everyone could criticize.
Yeah. And then the next highest comment, the amount of people saying he's going to switch to Valorant because he's playing poorly is way too high. He clearly doesn't want to switch. So shut the fuck up and let him be.
How they know that, I don't fucking know. But okay.
Clearly. It's clear.
By the way, if I had to guess, pure speculation, I'm not using any guy this info. If you asked me, Richard, make Thorin, can you please make me a top 5 shortlist of NA pros who might go to Valorant? I think Tarik would have to be in the top 5 immediately. It's obvious, isn't it? Look at his tenure. He has been a successful influencer. He's been a popular streamer. He's a well-loved figure. He's not very good at Counter-Strike at the moment, and his team is shit. So everything, there's all the checks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
in fact, if people haven't noticed, all of his fucking ex-teammates from CLG play Valorant right now. Like, he'd slide straight into a team tomorrow.
Yeah. Maybe him too as well. The amount of people saying he's going to switch to Valorant because he's playing with a pill is too damn high. This is from El Atiende Baludos. He clearly doesn't want to switch, clearly. So shut the fuck up and let him be. Everyone here cries when someone moves to Valorant, but then they just pressure when someone is underperforming to move. Like, what is that stupid mentality? Such a toxic community. Didn't see a lot of threads espousing sympathy for Xeppaa and Floppy on their upcoming moves to Valorant. Which I'm pretty sure are going to happen.
That's what I haven't even thought about, mate. I didn't even, because of how much fucked up shit was going on the Cloud9 one. Can this Xeppaa guy get a fucking break?
I know, poor bastard.
Mate, this guy's just walking from the frying pan into the fire, and the fuck, like, give me a break, mate. He can't catch. He's even trying his hardest in the game. You can tell this guy wants to. But if people don't know, the saddest thing about the Cloud9, the specific end Cloud9 roster dying, is I don't know if he said this publicly. I know he said this on like episode of Counterpoints. Xeppaa was one of the pros who was like, I don't want to go to Valorant. I want to play CS:GO. I want to be a pro in CS:GO. Like half the other ones, as Richard's alluded to, and as you've now found out. Even the ones who were pretending like that, because they were like the 1.6 pros, were like, I'd never swap. Half of them were just playing Valorant on the side as a cynical out if they didn't go well in CSGO. So, like, the sad thing is, there's actually very few pros of the NA pro generation who really do want to still make it. Like, all the ones I used to name, Dapper, well, they're all fucking gone. They all went immediately. Like, the idea we had two in theory here, who were legit talents for the future, want to play the game, want to be the best, even want to be the best for Europeans, not just NA players. And we're going to run these motherfuckers out of town. Give me a break, fans.
Yeah, I know. It's insane. And what you have to remember is, I mean, like, forget that Chaos was a success story. Think about the individual constituent parts of that success and its history and all it went through. I think if you go back 3 years, no, definitely not 3. Xeppaa was playing like in fucking MDL, mixes.
Nobody, I'm pretty sure,
yeah. So, like, he's the story, him and Floppy, that's the story you want, for breakout NA talent. Now, unfortunately, there's going to be 0 pathways now for NA talent to break out in Counter-Strike because, all the big orgs are fucked off and ESEA is a corrupt, toxic cesspool of match fixing. So, and probably won't survive the upcoming ESIC report. So, as a result of that, there's literally going to be nowhere. So now, as I said, as I've predicted since the game came out, as I've been saying, there was a little window where maybe Valorant could have been good for Counter-Strike, but Valve weren't interested. No one was interested in sort of like coexisting, if you like. They were just waiting on the sidelines to see who would win. Valorant in North America has already won. And I think actually it'll be a sweep. It'll sweep through other regions. One of the things people aren't talking about is, how like we have this huge fan base in Brazil for CS? Well, I would probably go so far as to say, based on what I've seen, and based on numbers and based on the chatter out there, I think there might even be more fans of Valorant, or it's certainly close in that region. And that was one of the regions everyone was looking to get into.
Of course.
Right?
There's another angle people never even think of as well, right? Because of the way things have gone with the lockdowns and the pandemic, right? People have been able to sort of quietly just bring things through the back door. Like, I'll give you an obvious example. Do you remember, Richard? You'll remember the reason. What was the main reason why people didn't want to join PEA? It was North American players, it was only going to be a North American org, didn't want to join and like give up EPL. Because EPL, this is what they all said, by the way, it was really important to them that EPL had a history and had many seasons and would continue to exist for many years to come, whereas a PEA, or in that case a Flashpoint, who knows, they could be gone tomorrow. By the way, good news, you dumb motherfuckers in CSBPA. They shut down the NA division, you wankers. You said nothing. None of you NA pros even said anything. They just made an ESL Pro League for the entire world, and if you can't make it to Europe like these NA orgs have mad money, good luck. So I can't even imagine if you could qualify if you were a top team in like NA. Like, if you don't have the money, you can't be in ESL Pro League. I'll even throw this in. I saw a while back, right, Semler was asking like Apollo, like, why was it seeded this way? And I even at the time was going to like correct him. Actually, Semler, you know, ESL's pretty good with their seeding now. I looked it up and I noticed it. It's so cynical, right? As an outsider who didn't look into it, but just looked at the rankings, I'm going to tell you right now, they definitely put all the Brazilian teams in one group so they could all just travel there at the right time. Like, they've literally made a mockery of what competitive integrity of ESL Pro League was. They took people's slots away that they qualified for. They stopped it even being a global fucking thing. It's just one league now, and they just make the fact that everyone goes to Europe, the fact that we don't have to address that. Like, these products are being downscaled, guys. They are literally dying as you watch them. I know it doesn't seem like it looks better, doesn't it? Wow, Pro League's so big now. No, all they've done is they've tricked you by making it look like, wow, it's like the global finals is bigger. No, that is just all Pro League is. And how do you qualify? Like in the past, you win MDL, you go like, yeah, good luck doing that if you're an NA org. Try being the fucking Triumph for the world. For all we know, Triumph in theory could actually be, no joke, the best team in the world. They have zero way to ever show it because that's what Counter-Strike is now. Congrats to all the fans who cheered that on.
Yep. Another one, you'll appreciate this one. This is from And They Rustled Softly. Sucks seeing this happen to one of my favourite players. I wonder if his comment will be biased in some way. I don't think he really has it anymore. Oh, okay. That's right.
Big Tarik fan, of course.
Yeah.
Give me dude,
no, but it gets better.
Never, come on.
It gets better. I don't think he really has it anymore. But it's far from his fault alone. I think he, Stan, and Cirque should all shoulder fairly even amounts of blame from the outside. So remember, the player who he's a big fan of, who he thinks doesn't have it anymore, he thinks that a player who doesn't have it anymore should be shouldering fairly even amounts of blame with the rest of the team, in particular Stan and Cirque, and why not everyone? So even though he can see Tarik can't hack it anymore, there was another comment as well, just above it. It's not so stupid, it's worth reading out. But he basically said, man, I feel so sorry for Tarik. He's always been in these top teams and he's always done whatever he has to win. He's always changed his role. And it's like, yeah, and he's never lost a paycheck for a day, despite being fucking, you know, a player in terminal decline. He's always made his paper. So, yeah, the tragedy of it all. And then I like this one. This is from Kadir Coffee. I just checked his Instagram photo comments and people are just so mean. Everyone makes mistakes while playing this game. If he was able to get those kills, the subreddit will go mad because it would be a 200 IQ play. EG wasn't playing... I mean, yeah, key difference, he didn't. EG wasn't playing well as a whole team in that game. The round was a breaking point for the game because they could have won if Tarik makes them win that round. But shit happens, and it's absolute bullshit to put the burden on him, a professional player in the team. In the end, nobody should forget he was the MVP of NA's only major win. 2018. He'll come back strong from this. Spoiler, he moves to Valorant. So, the absolute outpouring of sympathy for Tarik's hurt feelings compared to the fucking toxic, vitriolic hate of BTN for 6 years and aimed at Henry G and Floppy and Xeppaa and Price Tag and Alex and Woxic and Kassad and everyone like that, and Mezzy, even poor Mezzy, the most gentle of creatures. It doesn't align. And then because it was NA pros and they've learnt the power of the social media trick where what you do is you all gas each other up. Elige was there. Now, I actually like this from Elige. I think this is a little bit cute and a little bit clever. Okay. Elige is smart, you see. And that's one of the things he's got, right? So he tweeted out the comment that I read about him. Everyone will cry when someone moves to Valorant. By the way, that's not what happens when NA players move to Valorant. They get told, ha ha ha, go play the shit version of Counter-Strike, you washed up cunt. No one's really crying. I think most adults and most people who understand the business of esports understand now Counter-Strike is in a terminal decline. The only way to fix this is for Valve to change its strategies and how it interacts with CSGO and North American orgs once the pandemic restrictions are lifted. We know that's not going to happen. It's that or they release Global Offensive 2. That's not going to happen. So this is it, right? But anyway, Elige came out and said, that comment is spot on, but that's any esports community. With CS, though, it's so ass backwards where everyone attacks anyone that is performing bad or does a bad play and then go switch to Valorant. Then players do swap or an org completely drops CS. And who's laughing then? So you see, there's a little bit of subtlety to there to Elige's comment, because yes, who is laughing when you force an org that you supposedly support to drop a team? Duncan just said, nobody's laughing, right? But equally, I don't think those two things are quite the same. But, you know, Elige is smart enough to make it look like they're connected because that's how he works. He's a very smart dude. So listen, I just want to say, like, I don't think anyone wants NA players to switch to Valorant, even when they make a joke, go and switch to Valorant. I don't really think, like, for 90% of people, that's what's going on. But also, as well, as you rightly said, there's so many whisperings in the wind, you know, like every time I bring up, by the way, that there were very credible rumors, so much so Sponge mentioned them on the HLTV podcast before we'd even talked about them. And everyone always goes, oh, it's just rumors, and EG have denounced the rumors. If it doesn't work with Obo, what do you think they're doing? Are they doing a big roster change? Is that what's happening? Do people believe that? Does anyone believe that? So, no, unfortunately, the likelihood is the worse things get for this team, the future for a number of their players is going to be Valorant. I mean, I would certainly say, actually, I do feel sorry overall for Obo. I think he was putting in
I'll agree with you. Based on things I've heard, there's a world in which, like, the whole team could be gone in like, a few months, for real.
Yeah, and so... You know, I do feel a bit sorry for Obo because he's got to bet into a team that's already dysfunctional.
Yes.
It's only his second high-level professional team. The good news for Obo is he's young enough to just go over to Valorant and actually not be one of the washed-up boomer cunts who think they're going to be out there for years. He actually can learn the game, get good, and by the time he's 20 years old, be a star player in that game if it does take off, playing in the Riot franchise league and doing interviews and being adored. I'm actually happy for him that he's got that backup plan. 'Cause, you know, he gets a lot of shit for what he did to the team. He was 16, 17 years old, guys. Like, you know, he's just a kid. Like,
and in a very trying circumstance. Like, think of it. No one's ever been in this circumstance before.
Like, homesickness affects you way more when you're younger, for sure. You know,
it's actually a reason, by the way, even it's just a side tangent. It's another reason why NA CSGO is dead and is not coming back anytime soon. Because even the ones that do actually still play a top-level Counter-Strike there, the reason why they could never join European orgs, they don't want to fucking live outside the US. Like, if you think some of the CSGO players are entitled, Americans just take it to a new level. Like, they have to literally be able to see their, like, mum every day, otherwise they think they're, like, oppressed or something. So as a result, like, you know this, those NA orgs, even the best players, couldn't even conceive of doing what 100 Thieves do, where you just go and live your entire time in another continent. Like, they don't want to come. If the option for them in the future, by the way, is that you always have to come to Europe to play in ESL Pro League and stuff, and you're basically doing it like, you know, it's like a fucking oil rig. You go like a few weeks on, a few weeks on. They're not going to do it, mate. Some of them will quit. That'll make them go to Valorant. I guarantee it. Because that was the one thing they could never handle. Like, I'd say it straight up. Americans are just mentally weak in esports compared to other massive regions, particularly like the best elite Europeans. You referenced it before with the companies. It's the same in pros. Like, they need things to be exactly how they want them. Otherwise, they throw the fucking toys out the pram.
Yeah. And so, you know, I just want to say, like, don't the disparate parts between, you know, an established player on an established team with all the advantages and a massive salary, feeling a bit sorry for himself, gets the CS scene to throw a pity party. Cloud9, completely new team with young players developing. It's Lord of the fucking Flies, you know, brilliant. Well, and they can't even see it. Like, they can't even see it. Social media is mental. Now, we'll move to the next part because the story broke between episodes of it where, as I was said, there was the first domino about the big match fixing thing in ESEA, MDL scandal that in the upcoming ESIC report. It's going to come out. Dust2.us had basically had a recording that had players openly discussing fixing 2 matches. And this obviously had been held back since I think it was October 2020 when it was made, because ESIC were investigating it. We're going to get to the FBI in a moment, but just so people know, this was a recording that I think was very incriminating for all the people involved, although some people didn't interpret it that way because they were idiots.
Oh, of course. But here's the thing, mate. Like, this is one area I want to make a very brief comment on. It goes like this. So obviously, this is the sort of stuff that Richard is aware of, but it's holding back until the right time, as he has mentioned many times on this show, because the whole premise is you don't want to spook some of the people before you can catch them all. It's like literally catching animals where you load them all into a trap. If the first one that goes in gets killed in a mousetrap or something, the others aren't fucking coming, are they? They're all just going to run. Well, this is what's so dumb. Whoever out there did some of this like initial journalism, would you think it fucking through, right? Have you never seen a movie where some low-level local cops go way above and beyond trying to break a case open, and essentially an FBI agent tells them, like, you fucking dickhead, you just broken a massive sting that was going to catch the head cartel guy, and you've just caught like a doorman. That's what you guys have just done to this fucking case, you idiot! Why would you tell the fucking people about to be caught that the FBI are on their trail? What are you doing? Think it through. You've taken a very, very small story for you and potentially might have burned part of the bigger story. And you think, Richard, this is one thing I've always thought is this is how you know, Richard, that the clout chasers and the fake journalists are garbage at their job. Because when they say that me and you, like, if you really had something, you'd post it. No, that's just you saying what you would do. We have stuff all the time that we don't put out because it isn't appropriate. Or in this particular case, maybe there's a higher ideal you're going for, a more important goal than just a minor one-day click.
And that's why, you know, I hope people realize, like, this is one of the rare instances of, like, journalists coming together and doing the right thing. Like, yes. Dust 2 handled this brilliantly, you know, wise beyond their years and experience, let's say. And, you know, you'll know some of the names, you will. Maybe viewers don't, but the editor over there is a guy, Tolkien fanatic. I think he started out as a shitposter on Reddit. Now the editor of this. I know
he's behind Liquipedia as well.
Yeah, he was.
So he's done some things.
Yeah, he's made stellar contributions. I mean, I'm being really derogatory there, and I was saying but he did start out as a Reddit shitposter. That's where I even think I met him. You know, he was kind of a funny dude and a smart dude, and then he went into Liquid.
Got another lag, boys. We've had another lag.
It's been a very responsible editor.
You lagged a second, but I think it was picking up where you were speaking anyway.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So he was basically, you know, he's been a very responsible editor in this. They've also got a journalist called M&M's over there, spelt with just M's. He knew instinctively to sit on this and to see what happens.
Respect. There you go.
And wasn't looking for clout. And I'll also give him his due here. We haven't been a fan, but Ryan from Rush B Media was also part of this confederation of journalists. They all came together before even I was involved with what they had. I was already doing my own stuff from August, and then we were able to come together in October, you know, end of last year when this recording was made, and start sharing notes. And now we have a bigger understanding of the scope because we all held back clicks because we realized what's more important is the ESIC investigation and making sure these guys get caught. And the crazy thing is, I'll tell you this aspect to it that I don't know if this has been talked about publicly. So the players in the recording know the recording exists. They know the recording went to ESEA. Do you think this made them pack up their toys and go home?
I'm just going to imagine they will never get caught. You can't prove anything, coppers, or some stupid shit like that.
I think the thought process was, hey, look, you've got a recording and no one's been banned, so it's all safe.
So they went the other way, and they were like, if anything, it's carte blanche. Look, we can even get caught recording this shit and just fucking do it.
Yeah, which is another aspect. I was talking about it last night on stream, so I won't reiterate it. People can go watch the last VOD if you're interested. It's about 3 hours. But, you know, in 2018, ESEA basically may as well just hold up a sign and say everyone can match fix now, because when they banned strong legs and Effie's and cardiac, you know, they basically publicly admitted we only caught these guys match fixing because they were unbelievably stupid. This included one player having a family member place bets for them. So all you do is just go in your database. Oh, same surname. Womp womp. Right. And they only took any action because the betting company came to them with the information.
Fucking hell.
So they didn't even conduct their own investigation. And they put a statement up saying all of that explicitly. And so the story I'm telling is that you would have thought some people, including a relatively high-profile caster being caught and banned, would have made people stop. But the fact that they didn't catch others at that time basically said, listen, if you stick to these methods, you will never get caught. And it spread and it proliferated. And as I said, I mean, I've got people in these quotes telling me, they were being told there was 80% of people were involved, which sounds like bullshit, frankly, but like one of those, we're all doing it, so you come in kind of things. But I mean, if you cut that number in half, I don't think you're a million miles from it.
Still an enormous number as well.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, just so people don't know the exact status, remember as well, just because you hear ESEA isn't ESEA, is it? That was bought by, was it actually, it was MTG, the company that owns ESL, that bought them, right?
Yeah.
But they essentially merged the products because, as you saw, ESEA became part of ESL Pro League, which is the North American division, which doesn't exist anymore now. So what I will say is as well, there's another example of how fucked our industry is. Some of the industry leading companies are just tacitly saying, we won't even put any effort in unless basically a fucking betting company comes to us and finds out that it's not legit.
Yep.
That's went right to a ball.
So anyway, when this recording, some people have interpreted it very bizarrely.
How did they possibly think this didn't incriminate the people? That's the part I can't understand.
So because one of them says, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose that game. But then basically afterwards goes, all right, I'll do it, but I'm not setting it up. Now, they interpret that because how transcriptions and listening to the recordings, right. How... it basically.
So okay, let me take a guess. So basically, when he says no, I don't want to throw that game, they take that as no, I don't want to throw that game. But then instead, he was obviously just saying, I don't want to throw that game. But if you got another game,
well, but he even explicitly says, I'll read you the exact quote. He says, "All right, whatever, but I'm not setting up the incognito game." So in other words, all right, I'll do it.
I'll do other games, including that.
Yeah, but I am not setting it up. I am not setting up the fix, the throw. So multiple problems there for 4-pack, who everyone seems to be, it's just like Skadoodle. By the way, no one even knows what went on in that.
No,
right?
exactly.
There is no recording for that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So, all I know is he just decided he wasn't going to op that game, apropos of nothing, I'm sure. So anyway, people are going, he doesn't want to do it, bloody hell. He explicitly agrees to do it and says he will not. So I don't understand how anyone's getting that. Then there's only one line from another guy in it, and he says, I don't know if this person will agree to being on radar. When you're on radar, what you do is you stream your screen via Discord to another player. This was very popular. They used to like getting IGLs and coaches to do it.
Quite a clever way of doing it, actually.
Well, they would because they would have the most impact. You get an IGL or a coach.
And your teammate don't have to know you're doing it, of course. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And they would be paid a flat fee of $2,000 or whatever up front.
That shows how much they must have been making off the bets.
Yeah, that's again, that's what I've got from interviews and stuff. I have no idea, who. I'm not going to commit to sort of publicly naming names and saying who's doing what. All I will say is, this mantra of if we say nothing, they've got nothing is definitely not going to hold true. So anyway, basically this came out and, this is going to light the torch paper. I think it's ridiculous that if you're Retchy, for example, if I was him and I was on a recording saying all of these things and clearly being a ringleader and then hearing about the next part, which is how the FBI are now going to take a look at it. I would be talking to a lawyer is what I would be doing, because this recording is the most incriminating thing I've ever heard. Whether this is true or not, it makes you sound like you're the ringleader. Whether this is true or not, it makes you sound like you have dominion over these players. Whether this is true or not, it makes you sound like you are heading up multiple bets, all pre-planned in advance, multiple fixes, all pre-planned in advance. And that essentially could be, in the eyes of the FBI, a criminal conspiracy. So, if they're going to make a case against anyone, it's going to be someone who's saying that on a recording.
And America has some wild laws for that shit, as anyone knows all the RICO shit knows. Mate, that you do not want to get entrapped in one of those. That's the end of the world for you, mate.
Yeah, well, I mean, and what the FBI will do, I have no speculation. I'm not talking to them directly, but I do know that they're taking the case. It's not. It wasn't hyperbole because it came out, and I'll just bring you Sam. Actually, you'll be able to find it by yourself. I'm sure you'll be able to find a headline: FBI investigating Counter-Strike. Don't use the Kotaku one. So yeah, but the funny part of how that aspect of the story came out was Ian Smith went on a little guy's YouTube channel. He had about 5,000 followers at the time, and he was just doing an interview because they don't really have a PR or media department yet. They're still expanding and building it out. And so basically, whenever Ian's on the move, he might take an interview via his phone. And for whatever reason, he didn't think to get in touch with any of the journalists that have been holding back on this story. And decided to do it with this Slash32 guy. Now, Slash32 is part of the new school of, are pros cheating? Let's watch their demos. He's one of them. So the optics of Ian being on that YouTube channel is fucking terrible. I told him that.
People are going to think you're co-signing that shit.
Yeah, exactly. I did tell him. I said, mate, fucking hell, hire a PR guy. But and the funny thing was, he sort of hit me up and was like, yeah, that was a bit tough, wasn't it? I was like, yeah, it was. Yeah, it's fine. No, don't worry. No, the important thing is the takeaway is that Slash32 guy got like a massive fucking bump he was like covered in the BBC. He was like covered all over the world. And so listen, I think that's good when you have that kind of thing happen to you, because you've just tried to do good media work. So I'm not completely writing that guy off. I hope he moves away from the Dan M shit, because Dan M has that market cornered. And now he seems to be interested in match fixing and doing contextual analysis of games. He's got some very interesting clips that he's putting in his videos. And listen, you can do that, mate. Me and Duncan, if we do that, we'll get cussed out. We'll get called irresponsible or whatever for using our platform. You stick to it, because those clips are wicked. And make me laugh that anyone would try and deny what's going on in those clips. So yeah, the FBI's coming, and as a result, while I don't think this will end up being the biggest esports story of all time, I think in terms of North American esports, it will be. It's not savior levels, because we're not talking about the top tier teams.
No, of course not. Yeah,
it's not like that. But I think overall, it's one of the biggest esports stories of all time, because
sure. If you think, just think of the raw dollar amount. Remember, that's what everyone loves in the drug trade. It's this many. When we were a kid, if me and Richard watching the news, it was always how many £1 million of street value these drugs would have, which obviously was inflated because you just legalized the shit. It'd be nice normal prices, wouldn't it? But whatever, that's by the by. The problem is, though, right, in this scenario, even though I agree the juice isn't there, because really you need like top pros, you need like famous players if you want to get everyone's attention. But just when they're able to report, I'm talking like mainstream news, like millions of dollars in illicit betting and gambling going on, like that's going to be a story in itself. What fucking helicopter mom is it we're going to know about that? That what these kids games are playing, they're doing all illegal shit. They're going to lap that up. That'll be a huge story.
Yeah, and so I will have to wait and see where it goes. I mean, there are some obviously problems because a lot of them are Canadian, and it's kind of a bit of a mess. So we'll wait and see. I know a lot of people are waiting for the ESIC report. I think what's likely to happen now is ESIC originally wanted to do all the players all at once in one report, and that's just not viable. That's because it's so widespread, and so it's going to go in phases. And as I've said on Twitter, and it was kind of interesting because I interviewed Declan Hill. I don't know if you saw that. Declan Hill's an award-winning investigative journalist who exposed all the corruption in football and literally risked his life. Right. He embedded himself with like Chinese gangsters and stuff. We did like an episode of my podcast, which is up there again. Go check it out on YouTube. He was talking about, he had to move his mattress into the fucking bathroom at night and fucking be around the corner with the lights out because he didn't know if he ever got rumbled, they would just come in and cut him up with machetes. That's how deep he went. And so he's a match fixing expert. He reached out to me. He's like teaching a little module about the emergence of esports. And so I've done lectures at his university talking about the corruption and esports and how it's a mirror to what happened in mainstream sports. And anyway, so we were talking about that, and he's like, listen, the everything that's going on here is kind of very much will be very much of interest in his experience to law enforcement, and they will be looking to throw someone. Someone's going to have to bear the full force of it. So I think and he actually validates that approach. He says in his experience, that's kind of what you have to do. I was like saying, I feel sorry for it if it's just a bunch of kids, who have fucked up their whole life. And he's going, now fuck them. Sometimes you have to do scorched earth, or because if you don't, a sport can't survive. So that was interesting. It sort of made me feel a little bit less bad about some of the type of stories I've tackled. But I think I've said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again. I think some of these players need to kind of, especially the ones that are wanting to move to Valorant, like it's time to get on the phone and start dealing. It's really bad, and I keep saying it, and I wouldn't put my reputation on the line and publicly say something like this if nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, actually, here's the way I'll say it very, very clearly for anyone who's in this situation. This isn't like iBuyPower might have been able to get a lesser ban for competing in a video game. This could literally be you avoiding fines, criminal record, maybe even jail time. Like, what you can actually gain in this scenario by coming forwards is enormous. This isn't the coaches getting 3 months. Like, this is actually a legit thing. Like, if you're someone who's embroiled in this, you're almost certainly going to go down. So you're probably better off just like figuring out where your bread's buttered, mate.
Yeah, and the other aspect of it is as well, I did a report, which again, Sam will probably be able to bring it up. It was on Deserto, obviously. I did a report where, it's been communicated to me by multiple sources. Riot Games are doing their own investigation now. And sure, I don't necessarily have the biggest faith in a Riot Games investigation over my own work, and certainly the work of ESIC, and most definitely the work of the FBI. I don't know where I would put it in the grand hierarchy, but close to the bottom probably. But also the fact that they are looking at it suggests to me very strongly that you're not just jumping across to another game and having a good time. And, there's multiple orgs that have been reaching out to me, reaching out to other people, saying, listen, guys, can I even pick up this player? Is this going to be bad news for me in 3 months? And of course, behind the scenes, people are being tipped off like, listen, I might stay off giving him a long-term contract, wink, wink. And so Riot Games are looking into it. And I just wonder, the best thing Riot Games could do, in my opinion, now, if they're really serious about stopping corruption, is come out with a public statement saying that they will mirror any bans from ESIC. That if ESIC gives someone a 5-year ban, that will apply to CS, that will apply to every esport from every developer and every league in the coalition. And if you say that, suddenly things are looking a bit different, I would say. I think actually there's a very good chance that some of these people will look to come forward and just take that 30% off for admitting that they did fix, a few games. Keep in mind as well, I'm talking about the match fixers and the ringleaders. That's what I feel comfortable talking about because I've seen the mountain of evidence. I discovered most of the mountain of evidence myself. But, on top of that, you have all the people who place bets on themselves to lose, used information about fixed games to place bets. I mean, these are all offences. So it's really bad. The sprawl on this thing's unbelievable. And as I said earlier, I don't think the ESEA League can survive once this report is public.
What's the point in it? If even the conservative number you did, where you slash it in half, like 40% of people are involved, well, what's the point? Burn it down. There's no point having it as a league anymore, is there? Yep.
And that's the final nail in the coffin for MA because now you don't even have a tier 2.
Yeah, now there's no grassroots at all.
Yeah.
Now essentially think about what NA CSGO will be, right? If you're a player who didn't play for Chaos, Triumph, top teams, right, you now have to jump from essentially semi-pro to getting Team Liquid or Evil Geniuses to sign you, and then you can't play against them because they're not in America. Yeah. They have to want to fly you to Europe to live there and play with them. Like, in other words, if you think it's bad now, we're only going to recycle talent now. That's going to be the worst part of this, is that now Tier 1 NA that doesn't go to Valorant will just recycle. We'll never have new talent.
So let's leave that there because obviously there'll be more about that in the coming weeks. Ever noticed, by the way, guys, how you watch all these other CSGO podcasts, including one Richard referenced earlier, you never hear any discussion about the industry like this. You just have people who work in the industry, sometimes for decades, just blithely making it laugh. And Gambit might get better if they change, but that's about all the level they're at. Yeah. Never mind that the game itself's probably going to fucking die because everything's eating itself and money is just destroying everyone's corporate fucking value hierarchy. But yeah, never mind that. That's no big deal, is it, guys? I mean, the fact that your podcast will not be able to exist in a few years, that's not a big deal. Maybe just reference that before the last one. Maybe you can shut the lights out yourself on the way out. Because I tell you what, the one thing, maybe I'm like all of them, Rich, in the end. You know what's sick? For 1 second, I realised there that if CSGO dies, HLTV, the company dies. And for a second,
second, even I got happy for a moment. So I'm the hypocrite as well, trying to own the fucking libs by just shutting down the entire game that I love and have worked in like 20 years.
He's owning the libs.
I know.
Libs.
I've done it myself in the end. I've done it myself.
We always become the thing we hate the most, Duncan. It's an observable phenomenon. Anyway,
basically, someone make that meme, the two buttons, and on the one hand, right, it's like I'm sweating because I have to pick. It's like shut down all of CS:GO. HLTV.org gets to live. Like,
right, let's do some roster moves. So OG obviously is still on the hunt for another player, and it looks like they are going to be taking in Flames. Some people call him Flamesy. I'm pretty sure it's Flames.
I guess so.
That's what he's getting from me until he tells me otherwise. And that's obviously from Endpoint. Now, obviously, in the ESL Pro League, I think Endpoint really gave a good account of themselves. They were one of the big surprises for me. Really competitive in every game. Some unbelievable standout performances, including from Flames. And I've got to say, I think Surreal as well gave a really good account of himself. And it's not a surprise that in these down market times, smaller orgs that maybe don't have exorbitant buyouts or less solid contracts, that's speculation on my point with Endpoint, but they suddenly come onto the radar of the bigger orgs. Now, he's only 17. I think, if I'm correct, is he playing from Israel?
Yeah, I think so. So
so obviously,
ping most of the time.
Yeah,
he's in the Issa camp in that sense.
Yeah. So obviously, we know that region, the ping to Europe, is a disadvantage, but he's still been playing very well with it. It is possible, Issa, and so he looks to be the favorite to come in, and join this OG roster. It's not all the way across, because I do believe they're still being linked with Michu, the Polish player. But, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. I mean, I guess if the question is, if you had to take Michu or this Flames kid, which one would you be more inclined to go for?
I mean, I'll nearly always pick someone who has experience, etc. Because the problem with people like Flames is, first of all, this is why I'm not impressed when HLTV always comes out we did an article about this guy 5 years ago and said he's one for the future. Go on then, should we have a look at some of the other ones that you did the articles about and see how they did, you daft cunt? All you do in there is called the sharpshooter fallacy. You pick the ones where it worked and go, I'm fucking red hot now. It's so the problem, with that approach is, if you don't know, it's one of the biggest wastes of time is ever talking to other pros and going, who's good and up and coming, because they just say their friend or some guy from their country, and you can never take any of it with you have to take the biggest grain of salt of all time, basically, because it's just 99% of the time they're just talking out their ass, right? So if it's one of those players, you have to take him to lands first. Now you have to see that he can perform on land. Even if he can perform on land, does he choke in the big games? Has he ever played? The problem with that is me, who's way more blooded than this guy is. So if I have to contrast the two side by side, of course I'm going with the experience. That's what I would always pick. With that said, though, I'm not surprised that teams like Endpoint are the ones making out. Because as you say, mate, at this point in time, first of all, that's an org that's basically another talent factory. Look at the players they had a year ago that they lost. Thomas wasn't even was Mezzi actually an Endpoint? Am I making that up completely? Didn't he play briefly?
He played for a different UK team, I think.
Yeah, he played. He played for should I forget its name now?
Was it CEX?
But
Vex.
CEX, Sex Vex.
Right, there you go.
Vex.
Never mind. It wasn't Mezzi then, but the point is they definitely brought through a bunch of talent the last year or so. That tells you right now, by the way, where the market is at. So the market is, if you want a big name player, will bleed you dry. So guess what? Everyone's going for the cheap as fuck players. Or where, like Richard says, odds are that person could have just probably left his contract anyway. So if anything, you're probably doing them a favour, giving them a little buyout or something, aren't you? So no, I can see why they do the move. Financially, it makes sense. But if I'm picking between players, listen, me who hasn't done a lot in terms of the greatest players in Counter-Strike, he's levels above someone who's a nobody though.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, for me, it's a real coin toss, and I think the indication is they are going to go with Flames. I think that's what we're looking at. The Michu one's a bit difficult because I agree. I think he's the better player overall, experience, fragging capability. Seems to have a bit more versatility in terms of how you use them. Yeah, and I wanted to see a lot of those guys like him and Calix actually make out and get some opportunities because I think those are the players that have kind of been cast aside.
There's mad potential in those two players right there. You just need the right coach and org.
So there's that, and when you combine it with the 90 ping problem, not ideal.
That's the killer right there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's out of the frying pan into the fire kind of issue. Not to mention just internet being sketch in general. You might have to use a sub at some point, have your coach stand in or something, and that could happen at the most inopportune time. But I also got to say, in terms of like salary expectations and developmental potential and upside, and also communication skills, Michu's English reputedly isn't all that hot. And whereas Flames is fluent, obviously.
I'm assuming, yeah.
So, you have to think that's a factor as well, because do you want to go, do you want to just basically repeat the Issa problem by bringing in someone whose communication isn't great, especially as an org? They're looking to become more structured and actually do more executes and, be a tactical heavy team. So I think probably they'll go with Flames. And I think overall on the balance of play, I would be inclined to make that decision if I was doing fantasy GM in this spot. And you just have to hope that you can get him to Europe at some point in the not too distant future because of the way things are panning out in terms of COVID. So it's an interesting one. It's still also as well. I realized in the past we were mega critical about OG not spending money and stuff, and the reality there is they're no different to anyone else. They're no different to anyone else right now in that sense. And so probably I'm going to forgive them for kind of like doing this as an approach. They spent big at the start. They brought in big names at the start. And now, like everyone else, they're looking to kind of money ball it and double, and see what happens, because we really don't know where the game's at. So in that
That's
context,
also why I hate the move, though, because think about it, right? You already tried. By the way, even someone like Issa is incredibly more experienced than Flames. You already had a few players. It was Man 2 the Unknown. You fucking got away with that one. It worked out really well. You've got a bunch of players. Even Alexi B's not insanely experienced. You've got a couple of years in the game. You've just kicked your most experienced player, and you're going to sign someone who is effectively a nobody. Right? How does this get OG closer to the #1 spot in the world? That would be my question. Because the difference is, if I bring in Mihu, he might play bad and I might not do it, but all the other check marks are all there. So I'm already starting right. By the way, bringing in Mihu would even be appropriate for where he is in his career, where OG the team is right now. It actually sort of syncs up. They could both go up together. The Flames guy would have to turn out to be one of the signings of the fucking century to actually take OG to where they claim to want to be. Remember, when the Flashpoint 2 was going on, they were the #6 ranked team in the world. When you're at that level, the only game in town is go to #1. You're not fucking around maybe I can be #4. Fuck #4. If you're #6, especially in this era, the era when, as I said, Gambit can be unbeatable for the best teams in the world, but lose to Copenhagen Flames, then it's your time to be #1 if you're on a team like OG. So my problem with it is, it just seems like a cynical move again. I'm willing to gamble against it. Why are you gambling? Just get a good player. The worst thing about a team like OG is you are one real player signing from being extremely good in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see what happens. I imagine by the time the next episode comes rolling around, they'll have made a decision one way or the other as to who's going to join Nico as their new recruit. And let's talk about Ents. Always comedic. Now, Ents had just a horrific story happen to them, and a lot of people, because we were going to kind of wait until the end to talk about ESL Pro League specifically, but they had one of the most horrendous throws. I mean, it turns out it's actually the worst one on Dust 2 of all time. They were 15-3 up to win against Virtus Pro and ended up losing 19-17. And I've said this many, many times, to lose 16-14 is heartbreaking. To lose in overtime is heartbreaking. To get blown out 16-0 is heartbreaking. This conceivably might be literally the worst way to lose, I think. I'm trying to think of a worst-case scenario, because it combines a throw with as in a choke, with an overtime where you get the benefit of the hard reset. I mean, the worst's already happened at that point. Just win an overtime, then you lose the overtime. And so the sort of scale of comeback is just ridiculous. And then when I think it was the game will restart in 1 second, tweeted out, he said he searched all of the Dust 2 games in the CSGO database, and there is literally, it's only happened once where someone has lost from a 15-3 position. So
also think where Ents has been as a team for the last few months. If you crack top 8 at this Pro League, which is the minimum you would have done if you won that game, Mate, that's a whole new world. Like, how are they going to talk shit on you after all those big name teams went out in the group stage and you're making top 8? Like, that would actually be the first piece of good news for Ents in fucking ages. But as you say, they've just somehow they fucked it again with a totally different lineup.
Yeah. And so people in the chat are going, but if you're 15-0 up and then you're lost, yeah, but that hasn't happened. So I'm not gonna yeah, we're talking about real things. So anyway, there was a lot of people speculating, like, well, what happens after this? Because that's gonna really wreck some people mentally, and they were already a team that we had pointed out. They brought in a bunch of international people, and how it was all gonna, like, so what happens next? And it looks to me that they're going to stick with this roster. They're not going to make any knee jerks. It's a tough loss for them. But they did have Sadix on the roster. And he had sort of, I think, been phased out more by Spinks, if I remember rightly. But he's now announced that he's moved into free agency. So clearly, him coming back into the team, never an option. Not going to be any roster changes there. I kind of feel sorry for him in the sense that I don't think he ever got a chance to show his best in this team. And I still don't think Ents is a real team. They might have punched a bit above their weight in the ESL Pro League, but you can see that they're not in the caliber of a Virtus Pro or whatever. And I don't think this guy will have an opportunity to get a top, to get back into a top team. So it's kind of weird seeing Ents, who are all about, like, we're developing Finnish talent, kind of move away from that and, like, just cast, someone out. But because of the Valve ruling, I guess no one's keeping 6 players around anymore, right?
Yep, makes sense.
So sad to see him go. I'm sure he'll turn up in EU Valorant at some point. And I think, was there another one? Yeah, because we did.
That's probably also my other favorite thing about the Valorant narrative is that people still haven't figured out. Like, if you never played musical chairs, there aren't infinite spots available. Like, that's probably the dumbest angle about it. It's like, when the other people come over to Valorant from CS:GO, they're taking your job, motherfucker. You dumb motherfucker. That's why the ones that really are criminal, like we said earlier, the ones who actually sort of hadn't yet made it in CS, but they're young and they have actual raw mechanical skill. Yeah, those ones, it makes perfect sense. If you like the game, go play it. The ones that make no sense is when you are some guy who played for CLG 4 or 5 years ago and you're like, but I'll still definitely have a job in like 40. It's like, you won't even have a job tomorrow, mate. What are you talking about?
So yeah, we the other one, because we talked about this in the last episode, then we're getting a viewer questions, was obviously Mad Lions. Mad Lions came onto the scene, announced their team, said, hey, look, we're going to go with a bunch of young people and we're going to develop them and we're going to develop talent and we're going to develop this IGL and we're going to grow as a unit. And they kicked their IGL already within the space of an episode of BTM.
Now, I'm good if they're aware of this. Like, here, I'll just give them a quick tip, right? It's how time works as a linear concept. Yeah. You actually can't grow without time. It's actually one of the reasons why people who think that the dimension that we live in is maybe there's others contained within that, and maybe some sort of a god exists outside of time, but he would require time to grow things in. So if you don't give anyone any time, they can't grow. So you're a liar.
Yeah. So it was just a weird situation because the statement that they put out with it as well, like, how usually when you cut a player in like weird circumstances in the short term, generally what's considered the courteous thing is to say it wasn't really about the player at all.
You do it like you did with Cassard leaving. You go, look, visions didn't align and he was in a different direction the way we were going. You make it, you do like a PR answer that saves everyone's ass, don't you?
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is the statement that was put out by Mad Lions. We knew that a leadership role would be a challenging one to fill for such a young man and player. It was a great opportunity for him.
These guys, there's something wrong with these motherfuckers, isn't there? Imagine actually just going, and I'm the PR person writing this. Like, that's outrageous, isn't it? I know.
Yeah. Oh, it does. It buckles. It gets better as well.
Seconds. There you go. You're back. You're back. You froze for a second, but sorry.
It's
why is that happening? It's just Discord. Yeah, it's just Discord, mate. Anyway, so yeah, we knew that a leadership role would be a challenging one to fill for such a young man player. It was a great opportunity for him for a week to try.
So stupid, isn't it? I know it's so
to
stupid.
try leading a squad against some of the top teams from the world, and we are happy he took the chance and gave everything he had. Unfortunately, leadership skills at the level we need are difficult to develop in such a short time frame.
That's almost like an amazing... That's like I'm writing the parody version of what they wrote, Richard, and they never really wrote any of that. It's like, that line alone, the lack of self-awareness is unbelievable on that line.
Which also, by the way...
What is he supposed to do? Like, slow time down, like fucking Quicksilver in, like, Days of Future Past, and just learn everything about IGL while he's just walking across the room to shake your hand to join the team? Like, give me a break.
very premise of the team. Yeah, we realised that the very premise of the team, which was to develop talent in a short space of time by using...
You know what, guys? It's actually really fucking hard developing players, especially in a short space of time. We might reckon we might sign ones that are already good next time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, leadership skills at the level we need are difficult to develop in a short time frame. So we are looking for another IGL. And we strongly believe that Keane has a lot to offer. But
what did he possibly do in a week? This is like you've just joined the scouts and like, right, we'll make a tent. And he comes back and you're just rolling and shit going, I'm shit myself. Like, what did he possibly do in 1 week to get kicked like this?
But we need a different profile for the time being. Good shout out to all the scouts there. And then it just says, we're truly happy with his effort and work ethic. However, this is trial and error for both the coaches and the players. Wonderful system to be using. I love a bit of trial and error, me, when I'm playing with people's futures and building teams and spending money. And we believe we are on... and then it just goes, we believe we are onto something, and more roster moves are coming... until we find the right person to lead the squad.
Double down, of course.
Yeah. So it's appreciably failed. You've acknowledged that the central premise behind it was flawed. But we
definitely don't rethink that, though. Don't ever assess the central premise, Richard. It's only failed 1 week in.
I put my hand on the hot hob and it burned all the flesh off my palm. But I believe I'm onto something. And once my hand is healed, I will be touching the hob again. Incredible scenes from Mad Lions. So, got to say as well, there was a tweet that got deleted by King. It was pretty fucking funny. I don't know why he deleted it, honestly.
Yeah, his wasn't bad at all. He was just like laughing at the fucking HLTV guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, because HLTV did like fucking... here it is. I'll get you a picture of it, Sam, because I actually had this in my history when I was researching the show. There you go. Basically, like Professor CS, who you might see in the chat sometimes, said, Mad Lions, we will nurture and develop these young players with our extensive coaching staff. Mad Lions to Keane after 2 weeks. And it says, now get the fuck out. It's just someone saying that, right? And Keane just went, ha, 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 ha. And then thought, fuck it, I want to delete it. I don't want to get involved. Should have stuck with it, homie. You've definitely been done dirty here, unless you've done something bad that we don't know about. You know, it's like Alexi B.
It looks to me like the Mad Lions people just fucking harassed him. Like, take that down, how dare you? And he's a new player and he just fucking did it, sadly.
Yeah.
And we might speculate.
Yeah, but because he's probably still under contract, you know. Which is the other thing they do. I fucking can't stand this in this scene.
No, I'm with you on this one completely.
Yeah, we get you signed to a contract. You're a young player. You're inexperienced. We then publicly cut you. We do it with a provably garbage PR statement that anyone with half a brain could have told you that is nonsense. And yet, because you're still under contract, I get to control all your socials while you're looking for another team. And they enforce this, they do. So if you ever wondered why don't these ex-players ever criticise their... Because they're still under contract. They'd be violating their contract. You could take your money away. They'd fucking sue you in some cases. Not the rise of the non-disparagement clause, but it is standard, said the American lawyer. Everything they do over there shouldn't be fucking standard. That's the point. We shouldn't be mimicking what they do. We should be pushing back against it and trying to enlighten them not to do it. Not going, well, you know, an American lawyer said this is perfectly normal. Yeah, it is over there. That's why it's shit. Anyway, viewer questions. A new segment. If you pay $50, you can ask a question.
Oh, wait a second. He's had lag.
Am I lagging again?
He's alright for me.
There you go, you're back. It was very, very brief. It was like 2 seconds.
Now
this
your
time.
camera's gone pixelated for me. Yeah, I think Discord's just having a
Is
struggle.
it back now?
He's fine. I can still hear you. The
there
camera's
we
just a
go.
little bit blurry.
All right, so
What?
I can see it at the moment, but I guess it'll come back for you in a second, mate.
Fuck Discord. Get on Discord, they said.
It is way better than Skype, I have to say.
No, I know, yeah, they were
If
right.
people don't know,
They were right.
as a quick aside, while we're just getting this fixed, I'll tell everyone in mad detail about how absolutely shit esports was in terms of tech and the fact that we had no money. Right? If you ever go on my YouTube channel, there was like 3 or 4 year span where every show and interview I did, because it was through Skype, had like a sort of like white noise, like shh in the background, right? That literally was just something unique to my PC and no one else's in the entire world. Like some of the people occasionally got it, but like I could never find a single fix for this. Every other app on the internet never did it. It was only Skype. But because everyone used Skype, I had to just have that in my content, even though that was driving me crazy. Obviously, like why is this scuffed content? But so I'll give Discord credit for that. At least the sound quality is decent. The one thing you had to do, and then they've sold it to Microsoft, so it probably should be shit in 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, yeah, $50 if you're a patron. Ask a question, can be about anything. We'll answer it within reason. And under Twitch TOS, which has now been extended into not Twitch. So whatever. Yeah, J Dubs asks. ESL 1 Cologne 2016 raised the bar for production quality and talent management with their perfect casting of Scarra in the new role. Man falls off stage into hole as teammates and crowd all seem unconcerned while laughing. For this year's 5th year anniversary, which player, coach, or talent member should ESL hire to reprise this role as entertainingly as Scarra originated it, assuming there would be no physical injury and would be maximized for comedic value? Emotional injury is optional.
He's actually saved it with the caveat there because listen, I can't answer which player do I want to fall off a stage and be fucking potentially injured at a live event. Like, no matter who, I might hate a lot of players. I wouldn't wish that.
That's an
anyone,
EsportsTalk video waiting to happen, that, isn't it, Duncan? You know?
Exactly. There you go. Their video will be who deserves to fall off a stage, and they'd go, well,
why not Duncan?
Richard Lewis has stooped low a lot of times, so why doesn't he fall off? Wouldn't that do a lot for everyone? Some garbage angle like that.
Yeah, we're not saying Richard Lewis deserves to have both his.
Discord's
right
doing
on
us
a
dirty.
joke. He's done it right on a joke as
doing
well.
us dirty on a joke.
That was probably going to be good. There you go. Unfortunately, just as he said Richard Lewis, it cut. So what was the joke?
Oh, it doesn't even matter.
It's
Fair
ruined
enough.
now.
Fair enough.
You know, you have to learn to move on when.
Here's the thing.
It's a sign.
Not everyone out there can just have straight fire jokes off the cuff. Like, you know, not all of us out there are literally called hunter grooms, and yet your whole job is knowing what them kids are down with. Like, that's just the universe. God is the best for comedian of all time, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also do want to say, like his parents are hilarious.
Oh, they're
as well.
sadists, sat there. I know.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like, but anyway, I have to think it's like, you know, maybe it is an alias. It has like it just it can't be.
It does
real.
sound a bit like a wrestling / porn name, doesn't it? Like, it does sound like, is that really real? Is that a real name?
So anyway, yes, I this is a very good question and a very tough one to answer. I'm trying to think who would be funny.
Did he say does it have to be a pro player, or can it just
No, he said talent as well.
Like, the obvious one, I'll give you an example, would just be someone like Semmler, because if you remember that classic one where Semmler tripped on that stage.
Assembly, it was, wasn't it?
Semmler, no, it was a DreamHack. It was the DreamHack one that, like, fucking Kaylee was probably cheating in, if you remember that one, in Stockholm.
All right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, basically, it was in like 2014. It's when Existence had Kaylee and fucking Apex in the team and Kenny. Right, basically, he would be able to roll with the job, but also be funny. Like, you have to, the key thing with this scenario for me is the person has to be able to sort of not get like upset by it, because even though you say emotional, like, you know, whatever's optional, like, even if it would be funny if Nico did that, like, he would really not like that. Like, that wouldn't be that funny overall, you know.
It's tough. Maybe Henry, so the community could get the haha, look at his towering hubris brought down to earth. Maybe that. Alice asks, Did Carlos figure out the secret of how to grow esports viewership by bringing in a controversial figure like Richard Lewis to the main channel stream and watch the morons hate watch? Because that's what happened to me in
Oh, that's
Rocket
also,
League.
by the way, probably the part of that story that was overlooked by morons who know nothing except what a G2 jersey looks like, is they didn't even take into account, Richard, the context that it was motherfucking G2. Like, literally, if people don't know this, let me just for 5 seconds very quickly explain why Carlos Ocelot is one of the most fucking certified G's to ever be in this industry. Because his actual whole career was supposed to be professional League of Legends. He was never supposed to go above those heights again.
Yeah.
And in professional League of Legends, some people might know this. He had a rival from his own fucking country who played the same role, mid lane, who's called Xeppaa. Xeppaa not only had the significantly better playing career, but also, in one of the most infamous moves of all time, full-on dicked Ocelot directly in a match, making Ocelot cry and Xeppaa continue on in like the fucking World Championship or qualify. Oh, it was actually IM Katowice or whatever.
Yeah, it was Katowice,
basically, so think about that, right? The reason why no one knows that story is because that's now ancient history. It's like, 8, 9, 10 years ago. In the meantime, they both started esports orgs. One of them was sold to Astralis and they didn't even use the name anymore because that's where Xeppaa is. I used to know, but he's just a great player that doesn't play anymore. Meanwhile, also has probably the best esports org in the entire world. Like, you can't fuck with it. And how did he do it? Well, you've alluded to it. Part of it was branding. Before he even had the players, he got the right branding, which allowed you, by the way, it's such a genius market if you actually have the right people for it, not the Nicos and Reckless of the world. If you have people who can go in, lean into the jokes, it does all the things he's done. You protect yourself from being bantered too hard. When you are bantering people, you get in on it and you get some of the engagement from that. You can mock your enemies. You can make great rivalries. Like, if there's anyone totally understands and is on board already with what Richard was going to do, it was Carlos. Like, you picked the wrong org there, you dumb fucks. If that was an org that were trying to build themselves like, we're the most fucking pristine, like polite, yeah, maybe that one you could say it's a dumb hire. Like, Carlos doesn't give a flying fuck. If anything, I'd guess actually the premise of this question is right. That if anything, they probably thought that like controversy coming with you is even good for them. I'm sure it made a spike in like some of the engagement that they wouldn't have had if it just only been a normal person doing the matches from Rocket League, right?
Well, so actually, what ended up happening was, so when we agreed to do it, we knew it was going to be mixed reactions. What I didn't expect was that my theory about social media and mental illness, I generally think I didn't realize so many teenagers have been exposed. It's a tragedy in a way. There's about 3 generations of human life that is just absolutely fucked because of what the internet and social media has done to it. And I don't know how we course correct from that. And unfortunately, a lot of them, because Rocket League is a very sort of simple competitive game, it has all the things that appeal to a younger element. It's a very young industry. They've got professional players who are 15 who play in the top teams and the top levels. Something you don't necessarily see in a lot of other esports at all. So, on the one hand, I've always been sympathetic. On the other hand, kids these days don't really understand sort of consequences for their actions. So, I was getting spammed just endlessly. It's still going on now. I had one the other day.
People doing speed runs by any chance? People trying to ratio you, saying what age you are. We know the classics.
All coordinated on like stupid little Discord.
There's the worst part. That, by the way,
pro players and all
that's
that.
actually the detail that is the update to the story of the internet and mental illness that people don't know. The other thing that's made it intolerable is that everyone has a Discord community. I say that, by the way, somebody myself has like 2 or 3 now anyway. That's the problem, Richard. In the past, when they just had to be on Twitter and follow both of you and join in, that's one thing, right? It cut it down massively. Now they all just do this, where what they do is they put it in their Discord, a bunch of people who might not even be from your game and never followed you, they're now tweeting at you as well. Because it's now a sport. It's like a moron sport, basically. And they're doing speed runs to get blocked. That's what these people's lives are like, that they're wasting time going, I was blocked in 4 seconds.
Yeah, I know. No, and it's like, these are your best years, You shouldn't be wasting these.
Have fun, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, have some... I mean, well, no, but they would tell you this is having fun, which is why I do despair for the.
Crazy, isn't it?
It probably is based on what you can and can't do, can and can't say, the wealth of human experience you're allowed to live.
You can
now.
get away with it, I guess. Yeah, it's like the one thing you can still do, isn't it?
Yeah, So, but anyway, so it, on day one the viewership was good, but it actually did get bigger without me. You got to say now whether that's coincidentally because it was deeper into the tournament and the games were better. But we were going to play it week by week. But after week 1, me and Carlos just said, I said, listen, mate, I won't even put you through it. don't worry about it, because you know, G2 were getting a lot of shit. Carlos was getting shit on, and it's like, you know, I consider Carlos a friend. He was there for me in a very dark time in my life. He always treated me and Maria right. He's a real nice guy behind the scenes, and you know, you don't. I've always said the thing that always bothers me is when my shit blows back on people I care about.
Of course.
Yeah, that's the worst. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we just sort of had a little chat, said no biggie. You know, the broadcast went really well. It was fun to do. It got me back in the game. It's the first event I've done in a long time. Shame we couldn't see it through to the end, but whatever, you know. And there's a lot of, you know, he got cancelled. I didn't get cancelled, like, at all. Like, that's not what happened. It was like, do you want to do this for a week and see how it goes? Yes. How did it go? Yeah, the broadcast was great, but the community are a bunch of insufferable, mentally ill lunatics. So I'm just not going to do that, especially given the amount of money I can make doing this. I can just make on a stream these days, so,
yes.
You know, and not have to deal with mentally ill lunatics. So yeah, just pieced out on that one. And you know, that's fine. You know, like I say, it was a good event. But the viewership did get bigger afterwards, appreciably.
You know, by the way,
coincidental or whatever.
I've just thought of this, actually, just to by the by. But here's another reason why I really have no respect for morons like Esports Talk. It's like, do they actually imagine, Richard, that they're like innovators or something? Like, if me and you tomorrow just did their show, but with us, we eat their fucking lunch tomorrow. Like, it's like, you have to understand, guys, we wouldn't do that because we don't respect that as an actual form, even of entertainment, quite frankly. It's just very lowbrow. Like, it's actually the easiest gig to do in the whole fucking scene. As we say, you just read fucking tweets. Like, there's no skill to it. Yeah. Like, if people don't know, that's one of those areas where actually we are, unfortunately, from a generation that just doesn't exist in terms of, like, the new ones. No one's following this route. Like, when I think of that angle you said about how, like, you know, basically, like, this is their version of having fun, it just shows why they do all those scientific experiments on fucking rats and mice. Because, you know, when you see rats and they're in like a maze, you go, well, that's ridiculous. Anyone would just know. No, social media is just a shit maze with fucking carrots and sticks, and people just follow whichever way the carrot goes and away from the stick. It's actually ridiculous.
What's that box called?
Skinner box.
Experiment, the Skinner box. That's all it is.
Yes.
We walk around with Skinner boxes on our phones, like, you know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like, just to put it into context as well before we move on to the next question. When Carlos saw that clip, I might even have been watching the show live, that got used by Esports Talk, he got in touch with me to make sure I was okay. Many other people in the industry didn't do that. And actually, some who had supposedly been friends actually condemned me for behaving.
Holy shit! Is that anyone publicly did this?
Ish. Yeah. You know, and this is another thing, this will blow your mind. Guy who stayed up with me all night trying to talk me off the ledge. Slasher, of all people.
Oh, I can't believe that, Richard. So you're telling me in, what year is it, 2021, that in the end, Slasher didn't really have you back and sort of sold you out for the most low-level amount of engagement?
No. I'm saying he did. I'm saying he did me the favour.
Oh, he did have you back.
Yeah, he talked me off the ledge, yeah. He was the guy who stayed up with me all that night. Didn't have to.
Maybe I misheard them. I thought you said that he was one of the people who actually like fucked you over.
No.
Right, let's clarify that he didn't. And Richard, Slasher was the one who didn't.
That entire escapade actually taught me a lot about, you know, which people actually kind of like esports. You know, we're colleagues, not pals. You know, that was that was a real weird time. But Carlos was one of the guys who got in touch and reached out. Didn't think to use it in a video for clicks. Crazy. Anyway, Flacksmith, which player or team do you think will flop the hardest when LANs return? That is a very good question, especially given the fact that I don't even know who the fuck's going to be left standing.
I will say, by the way, what's funny is this just shows what the internet is like, because everyone in the scene wants you to give an answer to this question. Of course, it's a great question, but if you give an answer, they will also all condemn you. So what you're supposed to do is, like, every shitter, like I'm sure HLTV confirmed does this all the time. I don't watch the show. I'm sure they just tell you everyone's going to make it. Like, good news, we all make it in the end, and we're all just getting better, and young players are good, so let's sign them all. Like, you know what? I'll go ahead and guess the opposite. Most of them won't make it. Like, my distinction, for example. Here's what's funny. If you morons hadn't blown your load telling me Spirit were the next Na'Vi and the next Simple, I could actually give you credit, because you know what's funny? Gambit and VP actually look like two of the most legit teams to come about from the online era. What they actually do now looks to me like it could translate to LAN, assuming all the players make it to the, like in the Gambit case especially, to the appropriate level. The difference is, when I looked back, the most obvious example to me was Heroic. They were never going to make it. Having the potential third best player in a team at all 5 positions was ever going to make you the best team in the world? It doesn't even make sense, guys. Like, that one never made any sense. Same as with Big. Like, they look like they could be a very good team, but would they ever be number 1? No, I'd go and then say no. The difference with Gambit and VP is they actually look like they have the pedigree that if everyone gets LAN bedded, they could be as good on LAN as they are online. And that is an enormous statement. So I'll just say, everyone who I didn't say those 2 teams, just write them all off. They're basically all written off to some degree.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. I think Big is a good shout. I don't mind saying that. I think they're very hit and miss online anyway, but
I think they might get better as a result. If some of the other teams don't have the online form, their tactics might actually help them win a few extra games on LAN, I could say,
Yeah, maybe, but then you've got the LAN Tares phenomenon. So
that's a factor as well. That's why I always add in if the players can get to a similar level,
Yeah, so that's always hard. I think that's a definite one. I think, for example, I think FaZe will get better when the LANs come around, and that'll be a thing. Virtus Pro is a big question mark. This is what everyone's going to say. I mean, for me, I think tactically, absolutely, I'd love to see these guys on LAN. I think Gambit is the best team in the world right now. They're the number 1 team. I've been saying it for a week. They are hands down the best team in the world, as far as I see it. And I think that will translate to LAN. Got no strong feelings there. But the Yakindar questions there.
I'll actually give people an update on that, by the way, because he's a player where, because of the state of things online right now, you'll only ever hear positive things said. It'll be a pro player saying, I think Yakindar's a very good player, and what a great jumpman. Or it'll be a commentator like, wow, look at his entry stats. What no one will tell you is, it's a quiet, vocal minority behind the scenes of pro players who also think he might not make it, mate. Yeah. They also think they have a similar view to me, basically. Yeah. Like, look, we didn't just play 20 years of Counter-Strike, but then we're just dum-dums and you just reinvented the game. It's like they just said, let's just see where he is in 6 months. Let's see when the lands come, where he is.
Yeah, yeah. And just as an interesting aside, because I've had all the Na'Vi Defense League on me again, because I did a video saying, come on.
They should be better offline, surely. Look at who they can lose to online, mate.
No, but here's what saves them, because of all the coaching rules and everything, so Blade can't keep sticking his fucking fingers in the gumbo.
True.
I actually think LAN massively helps them, not to mention as well, because how the 6-man roster thing's going to play out. You're not going to have all that weird uncertainty and and them experimenting.
It'll make people very quickly, by the way, get rid of those ideas if we're trying 6 or 7. People will just pick the best 5.
So I want people, you can even click this, guys. I want people to fucking remember, right, that I said this. I think when we get back to lands, Na'Vi will be better because Blade will just be in the back, drinking a fucking, macchiato or whatever, you know what I mean? And that'll help them out immensely. So,
by the way, that's how you know none of those CIS people, including the Na'Vi players, ever actually did know what our opinions are. They only hear this show through the prism of a fucked up mistranslation on those Russian websites. And the reason why you know that is because Richard's the one who said after Katowice 2020 that they'd have an era. That's with Boomich and Blade. Then after that, he had them as being the number 1 team coming into this year.
Yep.
That doesn't even make sense that he just hated these players irrationally. If anything, you gave people like Boomich more fucking rope than I did, mate. I thought this guy, a few months in,
I really thought they were going to make it. But what you have to remember is the problem, the reason that Na'Vi are like this is, they're the legendary player from that region, go right back to 1.6. They're the biggest org in the region. They're the ones who seemingly have the most money, and God knows they fucking flaunt it. And so the default position, if you want to get a piece of that and you want to have access to it, is you must fawn over them. And let's be real, these guys haven't handled fucking being out the spotlight. I mean, I should have probably done it on the show. We'll do it next week. Even Edwards talking about coming back. Will you just stay fucked off? It's over. Markelov was the best player. You don't see this cunt fucking having to come back and, sponsoring betting sites and being like this and, hey, look, let me know, by the way, when I'm doing a Jesus Christ pause to advertise fucking. Let me know when that happens, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. What do I do? Oh, yeah, sick, great content, which you can go and watch now over at CS on YouTube. All right. I don't look like Jesus, but with tattoos and that. And you can come and gamble here and that because I say so. And let's all pretend that I never owned that gambling site I don't talk about, or that I own an org that no one ever talks about or looks at. Right? Yeah, it's me, Zeus, the esports. I'm the real esports Jesus, me, drinking Johnny Walker Black, the greatest whiskey ever made. Fuck this guy, he's a moron. Anyway, So these guys can't stay out the fucking limelight, can they? Right? And so they always have to come back. And so because of that, the default position is you're supposed to suck these guys' dick. And anyone who's associated with the Na'Vi machine, you're supposed to suck their dick. And I just don't do it. I said they were great. You've got the best player in the world. You've got a top 10 player in the world, maybe a top 5 player in the world in electronic. You know, what, you're trying to make him an IGL? Like, fucking, what is going on? Why not just admit you're out of shit, fire your coach and try something? Do you know how I know that can work? Because I've seen Gambit do it, I've seen Virtus Pro do it, and as you alluded to a lesser extent, I've seen Spirit do it. All recently played their way into the top 10. All recently have wins over Na'Vi in competitions. Like, this Na'Vi team, playing as it is now, if it played Gambit 10 times, I think it loses 9. I think the gulf in class is that big, and they're doing it with a younger in-game leader than Boomich, who's just actually good at being an in-game leader, solid coaching, solid teamwork, and solid tactics. Now they have to get on that level now. But yeah, so the Na'Vi Defense League doesn't understand. Like, 1-2 years of praise, now being sick of it and saying enough's enough. You've got to fire Blade. He's been a coach since 2019. You've appreciably gone backwards in that time. You win 1 trophy a year. It's not good enough. No, that makes you a hater and you must be destroyed. That's just where you're at. It's ridiculous. Anyway, thanks for that. Orky, I was active in the tier 1 source scene back in the mid and late 2000s, playing in Cal I and CVOP. That fucking takes me back. This was right before Richard and the CGS got going, and I had multiple friends who transitioned into the CGS, which was the first time gaming was a real career choice in the scene. Even with the fall of CGS, it still seemed nothing like a bright future. Outside of the lazy and entitled ownership of North America that has been more prevalent in the last few years, do either of you see any of the contributing factors of note for why it went so wrong in NA?
Does he just mean in general for CSGO now? Is that what
I presume. Yeah, Counter-Strike, yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest reasons is essentially, it's what you always bring up, but I think people miss the connection. The reason why you jump straight from the game to the business side is the NA orgs are only here for business, by the way, guys. They don't give a fuck actually about the competitive angle. As in, they do in the sense that they know you have to have competitive teams, otherwise no one will talk about your players, etc. But like, you've seen some of the moves they've made over the years.
Yeah.
Like, they will sign the big name over the guy who's way better, but just not as known. So the problem basically with those owners is, it's like Richard says, this is the issue they have, right? A true entrepreneur is this mentality. It's actually how I did my career. I know, for example, right, that the same video I make that I might put an hour into will get 10 times the views if it's incredibly well edited with amazing music and very nice, like, cuts of any time I cough or anything. But until I have the position where I can hire that editor, I'll just make the video scoffed and I'll just do it for now and I'll get it out there. And the idea, that's an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is like, can I get it done? And I'll figure out success along the way because I know it's a journey and I'm going to have to learn. Someone who's not an entrepreneur and who just wants to get rich overnight just goes, right, what's the quickest, simple plan that you can lay out, step 1 to step 4, about how I can win? And that's every NA org, as far as I can tell. They just want a game plan. And so what really makes them leave a game, by the way, isn't that the economics are fucked yet. It's that there's no game plan. So what the NA orgs have seen, in my opinion, in Counter-Strike is, well, there isn't a LCS. I mean, we tried with Flashpoint, we didn't succeed. There isn't a game dev that's going to do all the things I ask for, who I can even ask to do things. So what they say is, they say, I don't see what the game plan is. Where's my roadmap? How do I get there? Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you'd go, brilliant. What, they're all ducking out? Well, I'm going to stay in and I'm going to be the guy that figures it out. Because the guy that does figure it out,
by the dip, right?
Yeah, he'll be the winner. He'll be the fucking Jeff Bezos or whatever. But the problem is, all these NA, it's what Richard's nailed it. They want the easy way script for how you play the game, and if you don't have it, they'll go to a game that they think does. Even if, and this is the hilarious thing, it's fucking Overwatch that's the choice. Like I told you before, mate, the thing that burns me the most about those Flashpoint owners is that they all still have owl slots. Fuck those guys.
Well, I never thought I'd see Cloud9
Mad,
out of CS.
Imagine someone telling you that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I'd thought they'd been huffing paint, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just to answer the guy's question, it's good you've been around for a long time. Glad you've been a fan all of this time. I think, look, the bottom line is, like, everyone has to shoulder a little bit of the blame, but no one has really been interested in building an ecosystem, because for years the community, passionate community members, and even TOs and people like that who sure have a vested business interest, but certainly wasn't always profitable back in the day, they sort of built something and we kept it alive. And we kept, you know, if you're a Source fan, you know, Source always lived in the shadow of 1.6. Yeah,
it was all grassroots, right?
Yeah, had a very healthy and vibrant scene by the end, the end of days in 2012 when CSGO was coming out. You had that last big Copenhagen Games LAN, the big send-off, wicked storylines that came out of it, crazy stuff. And loads of those source players were able to transition into the early days of CSGO and make the scene very, very successful. And Skins era comes along and the accelerator pad. So the problem is that basically for years, as I see it, people pretty much just for the sweat of their own labor and for no money have essentially done Valve's job, TO's jobs, team owners' jobs, even players' jobs to some extent for them, and basically created an infrastructure that they've just been able to plug into and get on with it. We've done that. We've created the narrative storylines that drive the content, that drive the hype, that bring in the fans. We created the original tournament. So many of us, like I say, I've been an admin in the past. People don't realize you don't just wake up one day and go, right, I'm Richard Lewis, esports Jesus and journalist extraordinaire, and that's where I'm at. I did a bit of everything. I managed a team, created my own org. I got people salaried. I got people bumped up. I went on that CGS journey with a team where the reward, I'm so good at my job. I managed to get Ceratech, who made those fucking Z-board keyboards, with World of Warcraft decals on them instead of letters. I managed to get them to give me thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds, to take a team to a tournament for 3 weeks where the reward was we lost the team. Now imagine that as a sell, and I sold it. So I did that. I helped develop talent. I helped develop casters. I was a caster. I was a commentator. I was an admin in a league. And I'm sure you've got similar stories, right? You've done all these little things, I was running community cups and talking to 50 people on a TeamSpeak. So what we did was essentially build this thing, keep it artificially going, and then we sort of acknowledge that if you ever want it to be big, you got to have the money. You do have to have the money at some point. And then the people who generally have the money, they're not from your world. They're not interested in doing the things you did, but they will give you the money. They'll even give you some of the money to do it. Not a fair amount of money, of course, because they're all greedy bastards, but they will give you some. And so you take that money, and now you think, wow, we're legitimized. And then we build it a little bit more and a little bit more, and more players come and more interest comes. And now suddenly the games developers like, oh, what if they built over there in that little Petri dish I've been ignoring for fucking 10 years? Oh, look, they've built a fully sustained ecosystem. Is my intellectual property, though, so I think I'll go get a fucking piece of that now. What, you're taking a piece, not giving a piece, despite the fact that this longevity we've given to your game makes you money. Yeah, we'll be taking a piece, actually. Oh, and assuming total dictatorial control over everything you've done, which is one of the reasons why I like Valve is they didn't do that. They still wanted a piece and they still wanted input, but they didn't ever do a Riot with it or an Activision Blizzard. And so basically, just on the effort of people who were probably the least appreciated members of the community, all of the admins, all the people who built leagues from the ground up, all of the beat reporters you never hear about, all of the cameramen, all of the observers.
Everyone in the first decade, you've never heard of them. And built the industry.
All of the OGs that fucking stuck around after CGS collapsed, which, by the way, people literally told you to your face, why are you staying? It's over. People told you it's over. Yes. Why are you going to ruin your marriage over this?
That was like esports had jumped the shark completely.
Yeah. There was, anyone who was there at that time, your wife would come to you and tell you, I'm getting a divorce if you stay in this now. You won't see the kids. Fuck this. And some people, mentalists, made the decision, no, I think we can rebuild from the ground up. Let's stick around. And so we did. And the reward for that, by the way, is to have a bunch of greedy bastard Americans spending VC money, fucking up everything, and basically lighting the torch paper for our inevitable demise. While everyone sits back and lets it happen.
I'll give you a metaphor for what the esports industry is like in light of what Richard just said there. So actually there was an incident, I think it was last year or something, where I'd blocked this Jake Lucky moron from fucking EsportsTalk. Now again, because he's not a credible person, he just did multiple tweets like, why am I blocked? Even though it's not relevant in any way to our jobs or even, I have no relationship with this individual. Tempo Storm, one of the most Johnny-come-lately piece of shit orgs of all time, essentially just Reynard's vanity project. They just rocked up with their official account from the actual fucking org and just replied to his tweet, doing the sort of clout-chasing behavior we described at the beginning of the episode, going, well, I hope he at least reached out to you and discussed it. Like, why the fuck would you have an opinion on what I should privately do in a conversation when I built the industry that you're now able to work in? Shit media, social media cunt, working for Reynard. Suck my nuts. Who the fuck? Even if Reynard himself said that, I'd tell him, who the fuck are you? Who are you? You're Reynard's fucking bitch, and you're doing that. Get out my face. That's the esports industry in a nutshell. The idea you even have an opinion on that is unbelievable.
I mean, yeah, you know, and I've realised that, like, you know, what we sort of did make. I wouldn't call it a Faustian pact per se, because there's been lots of good stuff, you know. I mean, like, I would say 2018, everything was still on course to be very, very good.
Yeah, it was looking great.
It's just what's happened in the most recent times, and people are going to blame the pandemic.
That just accelerated it, mate. It was going to happen anyway. I can tell that rot was deep.
Yeah, exactly. It's because if you've never gone through the struggle, you don't appreciate the good times. And we had a lot of people who've never struggled for anything in their life, and they've come in and because we've always had this tendency in CS being a very welcoming community, we basically let them sort of take over. And I'm sure with these guys, they'll have the best of intentions. Oh, what's that? They were just greedy, profit-driven businessmen. Oh, okay, no problem. So it's going to be hard. I mean, I know I won't stick around to rebuild a third time. I'm not doing it again. I've been through so many esports bubbles, and that Declan Hill interview really made me take a long, hard look at myself. Because when I described all of the match fixing journalism work he did, he said, like, you know, like it was incredible expertise and the sort of stuff he did. And then I had to sort of explain to him, oh, and by the way, I'm reviled in my community, and everyone thinks I'm not a real journalist and stuff. And his mind's just blown by that. So it's like, well, you know, I'm gonna write an esports book. This is how I'm gonna leech off the scene. I'm gonna write the definitive esports books and just dine out on that forever. Just live on the royalties and the residuals and go on to my next project, whatever that might be. Make those documentaries and fuck off. You know.
Oh, mate, I've always thought in some ways one of our best revenges we could ever have. This is why on some level, it's like you say about writing the books, that you could always be credited for that. Here's the thing. In 20 years, when they have the news segment and they're like, and of course, to address some of these new developments in the esports world, we've got Richard Lewis here who wrote the definitive book on it. Now, here's what's going to be our ultimate revenge. Every motherfucker who fucked with us over all those years, you're going to be clenching your arsehole so tight when that mic goes live. Because I tell you what, if I'm there, God forbid I ever win another award as mate. It's going to be bad for a lot of people in this industry. Because that's what I'm waiting for. I'm just waiting for the moments when each time I get to talk to someone from the real world. Someone from, like, for example, when I did Flashpoint, I did like an interview with like a fucking live television. Well, I don't think it was live, but it was like a TV channel, like put it out the next day. I could say anything I want in those moments. Remember, I even also have positioned my career so no one can ever fire me. So it's going to be real. If you think these reprisals are bad, these are just shit on Twitter, mate. Shit's going to get amazing in 10 years from now. Because I can't wait to be there, similar to you in that scenario, and them go, but I don't understand. I thought you were somebody who won awards in this field, and, you know, was like I'd be like, oh, I was, yeah, and I was treated with disrespect by star players like Device, who just basically cost me what would be like a normal person's yearly salary just because he was butthurt about a tweet. So I'm just going to be able to directly call these motherfuckers. That's going to be great. I can't wait.
Yeah, ascend. Right, Dancer. So I know there are a lot of theories about why Nico took the AWP. Which one of these is most likely? 1, Kenny S was really not playing good anymore and G2 were desperate for change. Or 2, Nico's amazingly huge ego told him Simple and Ziwu were hybrids, so me taking the AWP will put me back to the #1 player in the world.
Maybe a little bit of both columns on that one.
Yeah, no joke. I mean, listen, I'll say the first few games he did it were disastrous. They were really, really bad. They gave it back to Amanek for a bit, having him play that support AWPing role Smith's always claimed he was doing, and Skadoodle claimed he was doing. Just appreciably bad AWPers. But Amanek actually did a good job at it and made it look like it could be a real thing. And the team was more functional in that moment. Now, since then, Nico's took the AWP back and has actually had some good games and some good score lines with it. Although they again gone out of ESL Pro League, I believe. And so, you know, I'm just going to say this. Nico is a player who he can't let anyone else have their shine. Like, the only times he will allow a player to be praised is if the praise is coming out of his own mouth, without him thinking, why am I not getting praise? He's wired like that. So there is no doubt in my mind that he has honestly thought the best players in the world are hybrids. I'm one of the best players in the world, probably the best player in the world. I have to play in worse teams than these guys. So I'm going to pick up the AWP and I'm going to dominate with it because I'm so good. And I will now be talked about in the same breath as a Simple or a Ziwu, which, of course, if anyone's watched the game in the last year, that would be absurd. They're on their own little island, battling it out like fucking King Kong and Godzilla. But I mean, yeah, I if you would have asked me what my gut feeling would tell me, like knowing the guy, yeah, I think 2 is a viable component of it, yeah, for sure.
I think there's a key distinction that maybe I didn't make this strongly enough in the past. I feel like this is where most of the confusion about my thoughts on Nico and my speculations of what he does and then what people say he's doing. Here's the distinction I maybe didn't make before. I don't think Nico consciously is doing any of these things, any of them. I don't think he, by the way, I don't even think, and this is a real statement, this is one of the reasons. Does no one wonder? You notice, Richard, they're so stupid they don't even speculate on these things. Did they not wonder why, like, Cassard and Yanko still come on all my content when I'm like the #1 flamer of fucking Nico on Twitter every single time he does something? It's because they know I'm legit. They know I'm not just making shit up for no reason. First of all, they know some of the things I'm saying have some truth to them. Maybe I'm characterizing them in a way they wouldn't choose to. But more importantly, I also understand a premise that I think real Nico haters don't, which is this. He actually thinks he's doing the right thing. For real. He doesn't even think he's being insulted. Like, I no joke, I genuinely think since Kenny S was having mad problems as the AWPer, he thought he's helping the team by being the AWPer in the short term. Now, we disagree. That's fine. Except for the fact he then gets put hurt and then all his fans get put hurt and they make a big thing out of it. That's by the by. The problem is, I actually do. That's why it's ego, though. Because basically, here's Nico summarized. There's going to be a classic analogy here, right? One of the most hilarious moments ever in the career of Tom Cruise was obviously that classic interview that got leaked that he did for Scientology, right? And in this interview, he said something which everyone remembers. It's those scenes that people always make the laughing meme out of, where he was just doing that maniacal laughing, like, but then he did this mad part where he just says, when you pass by a car crash, as a Scientologist, you know you have to stop because you're the only one who could help. Now, when he says that, right, even though he's actually trying to be sort of like a humanitarian, the hubris of it is so nuts that you have to go, dude, so even when you're thinking about a car crash, you had to make it about how you're brilliant, Tom Cruise. Like, this is mental, mate. Like even your good intentions are fucked the way they're presented. That's what Nico's doing. What he's doing is exactly like you're saying. He's going, look, guys, who else in the world but me could take the AWP right now? I am one of the true talent. But it's like, mate, that's unfortunately, that's like a fucked up way of trying to be a good teammate, but you're actually a bad teammate for doing it like that. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I'll even throw in there as well, because people will find the angle very weird, right? Like, well, why would he say that he could be a hybrid? I'll tell you something else very weird about Counter-Strike, is that in the modern day, I've always been told by everyone, all my mates, Yanko, Moses, all the analysts on TV, they all tell me you can't have a 5-rifle team. It doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. You've got to have an AWP. I'll say, by the way, I think that, like, if you look how little Nitro actually had to do with the AWP in that team, look, I think that's already been debunked by many teams in history. But anyway, let's put that to one side as a separate discussion, right? The reason why it's crazy that all teams and top pros have the opinion you must have a dedicated AWPer is because this is the real punchline. None of them think the AWPers are actually the best players. They all think the gun's overpowered and that's the only reason you do it. So they don't actually believe, like, they'll give Simple and Zero their credit because Simple and Zero were good with every gun. But put it this way, I think Nico especially really does look, and the obvious example to me is Device. I don't for 1 second believe Nico ever has thought Device was better than him for 1 second in the game. I think he thinks he just uses the gun, he has better teammates and blah, 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 insert a couple of other excuses. So as a result, it's not implausible that Nico really would actually use that angle. Like, I'm the only one who could save us. So I think he is doing that. It's just, I know it sounds weird because I'm sort of criticizing, but I'm not at the same time. Like, I actually genuinely think he thinks he's doing what's best for people. He's just surrounded by yes men and he doesn't let himself actually really analyze criticism. So it means he never can actually do what's right for him and the people around him because he's just in a bubble, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'll back that up as well. The thing that makes him a problem is the thing that makes him great. And if he could just dial it down from a fucking 10 to a 7, it's a different ballpark, you know, but he can't, can he? So, Carv, another week has passed by with O Plano, or as I like to call him, the old piano, not getting picked up. As all BTN viewers know, O Plano means the piano plan in Portuguese. But who do you think had the better plan? One, KNG and the XMIBR Corps understanding their enormous market value and jumping into free agency.
I feel like this one's the trap one. Okay, let's see what number 2 is.
2, ESL's initiative to save North American Counter-Strike. 3,
it's already tough competition.
3, the Cuban Bay of Pigs invasion. Or 4, any Baldric scheme from the cult TV series Blackadder. That's a good reference.
Now, to be fair, in contrast to the first two options, the Bay of Pigs invasion was actually, an idea that at least had some legs with it and maybe could have been pulled off correctly, in contrast to the first two.
Yeah.
The ESL one does make me laugh, though, because, the ESL one, it's where ESL, this is where people like Ulrich will never get social media, is when he thought he'd got the ultimate W when he did that tweet that was like, we'll run some cash cups or something. It's like, so what you did is you came in, you had the whole scene on lock, then you basically let everyone just leave the game. You said, fuck it, shut up shop anyway, move everything to Europe. And you went, you know what, though? I'll run you one of those, community cups that we used to do back in the day.
No.
Dude, he may as well have been like, what are you talking about? We're bringing back Go for CSGO. So, mate, you just you're not ready for the internet. You're from the generation that just couldn't handle the internet. Get out.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, put it this way, moving into free agency now, willingly, is the dumbest fucking thing you could do. It really is. And looking back in retrospect, I don't know if it was as bad as what they made out, but if the old MIBR org said, listen, to keep you, we got to take a pay cut. Things are bad. Things are hairy out there now, especially in, North America, that rate, in South America, the sponsorships aren't necessarily coming Counter-Strike's way anymore. So to willingly jump into that is bad. But then again, ESL's initiative to save North American Counter-Strike is also one of the worst things I've ever seen. So it's very hard. It is a toss-up between one or two. You have done me there, Carv. I don't really know how to pick it. Is it fair to just call them equally?
By the way, you know what my favourite part of the MIBR one is? This is the part that shows you that these guys are the ultimate brain trust in the history of CSGO. Some of them are under contract to MIBR. So what they did was they openly, publicly insulted repeatedly the people who they are now relying on to ever sell them if a single person would ever ring that motherfucking phone in the MIBR office, which, as I pointed out in the past, to my knowledge, has never happened ever. As in, no one's even ever called them once, guys, and gone, could I start to talk about this person? God, that's never even happened. That call has never occurred. That's how nuts this scenario is. So the fact that they had the gall as well, this is how dumb KNG is, to call the team like, we have a plan. You don't. And the mad thing is, calling it that is what's going to be what will be remembered about this, is that is the ultimate donk and self-own of all time. That you said you had a plan and you had no plan. Yeah. I mean, you did, except you're so dumb. You think, this is basically how KNG's mind works. What are you doing tonight? Any plans? Yeah, I think they're going to a party. Oh, whose house? Just thinking of walking around, seeing if there's any parties going on. That's not a plan, you daft cunt. A plan is if you actually have an invite and you just go to that place. You've got the opposite of a plan, you stupid moron. Then again, to be fair, just getting a visa, fucking not watching the stream. There's a lot of hard things for you, KNG, and all.
He has struggled. He has struggled.
It's fucking hard.
Rekovic on Steam asks, could I use my matched fixed Bitcoin to invest in an NACS team and become the region's #1 org in a few weeks? I mean, I'll tell you what, right? Just all joking aside, what's happening in North America now, this is North American Counter-Strike, it's Extra Salt playing Pain Gaming just over and over again on endless loop, like a bad rerun.
Well, the good news is, though, Rich, all those people on Reddit who said that they thought Cloud9 should have actually kept the Extra Salt players, they're probably watching it, so the viewership must be incredible.
Oh, yeah, definitely are, that's
we know that works, isn't it?
It's quite funny, actually, because I actually read there was a textual analysis of the DreamHack qualifier that Extra Salt won.
Okay.
It was on that esports numbers thing.
Charts, maybe?
Yeah, esports charts, ESC or whatever. And I showed it on stream to just show how ridiculous some of the comments had been. And basically Extra Salt were the least watched team there, even though they won.
Jesus Christ. Reddit wins every time. What's amazing about Reddit is it's like you're fucking actually doing... you're actually crowdsourcing the worst opinions in the entire community and then making sure everyone's aware. And then trying to say, I don't care how many times you tell me there isn't a consensus. By definition, a consensus is the most agreed with opinion, you fucking clowns. So what you do is you then show the entire world of esports, have a look at CSGO. This is our opinions. And then we have to sit by and go, yeah, we work in that game. And, it's our whole lives and that. Y'all are the dumbest. Y'all are the most embarrassing motherfuckers of all time. CSGO Reddit.
Yeah, I know. I sent Sam, actually, because before I sit down and talk about things, I do research. It's an old-fashioned value to hold. But you can see there, it was literally an article on esports charts called NACS is dying. No, jokes aside, North American CSGO scene is almost dead, is what it was called.
Of course.
And you can see there, most popular teams in the DreamHack qualifier that Liquid didn't win. If you look at it, even Triumph had more viewership than Extra Salt. So just putting that out there. But whatever, you know best. Thanks for the question and the continued support, Reykjavik. North FC. Do you think this is first sock? Do you think Liquid are in a good place? What should they do to improve? If not, I actually think they have improved. I think they've appreciably gone forward since Fallen came into the team. They play with structure now. Now, again, they've had some issues. I wouldn't say they're at the optimum level yet, but in terms of where they were before the IEM run with Twist, when they had that last run, compared to where they are now. And how they look now, and how Stewie 2K is being enabled to play his game, I think they look like a much better team. I was a bit disappointed, honestly, with kind of where they ended up finishing in the ESL Pro League.
Well, they had a chance to win that thing.
Yeah, but it's also got to be said, the format is fucking garbage.
It's garbage, isn't it? I know.
Yeah, the format's really bad. Where Liquid were looking really good coming into it. You get a dangerous opponent. They lose 2-1 to G2 in a very close series, and that's just it. You're just out. There's no benefit to that. Meanwhile, there's teams that had like a worse record coming out of groups that just by virtue of how the format works, they're actually going to go further and finish above Team Liquid. Although, had they ever played them, they would have lost. So, I haven't really been a big fan of the format here for ESL Pro League. Appreciate them trying to do something different and keep it fresh. But when you look at it, Team Liquid finishing 9th to 12th with Ents and Fun plus Phoenix is not a representation of Team Liquid's level of performance right now. Meanwhile, Na'Vi finishing 9th to 12th most certainly is an accurate representation of where they are right now. So any format that throws up anomalies like this is absurd. But do I think they're in a good place? Yeah, I do. I think they've definitely moved forward. I don't think you're a million miles away. I think they're ranked number 4th in the world right now on HLTV. Don't think that's a million miles away from where they are. Might maybe put them down one spot. And that obviously is a massive upside to where they were when Twist left. I mean, you could see they were absolutely fucking done on toast. They had no ideas, no shit. Even Moses was looking fucking stressed out every time you saw him. And this is the dream job for him. So, yeah, I think Fallen coming in has been a brilliant move, personally.
Yeah, I actually think the moves worked out pretty well. I even think, you've seen his game return individually a little bit, which, by the way...
Certainly.
Spoiler, that means that guess what? Semler was right and you weren't fucking trying properly when you were in your team where you got paid megabucks no matter what the result was. As though anyone has to deny or even explain that premise. Only someone who's a mad narcissist like Fallen would ever dare have the gall to claim that. Hey, I'm trying really hard and being shit at the game. So don't criticize me. It's like, how bad are you out of shape? Like, listen, you can do badly, you get the criticism. That's the way the game works. So here's the problem I have with them as a team, though. Is I actually think they are legit one of the most stable teams in the game. If I had to pick tomorrow, you have a tournament that has the top 10 teams in the world. Who makes top 4? Team Liquid would be right up there. They'd be there's not many teams would, but they'd be one. Because that's the point as well. You have to be really good to beat Team Liquid. They can lose for sure. They haven't won any tournaments. But tell you what, you have to be fucking good to beat them. You have to be either one of the best teams in the world or you have to play outrageously well. So I think actually as a team, they've got very good pieces. I also think they're even a good example of a team that probably instantly transition when we go offline again. So a very good future. I don't know. The problem I have with them is the NA scene is dying. And so at the moment, you have to just be the best team in the entire world if you're Team Liquid. So can they reach that height? They've got a chance to. The problem at the moment is I actually feel like, and this is actually a bit ironic if you think of their team, unfortunately, I actually think sometimes firepower is one of the things that's an issue. Because you think about it, they've shed that star roster where every player at one point was a star player. Grim never really was a massive fragger in Team Liquid. He's just a good player. He seems to have done well enough for the time he's been there. Fallen's always going to be up and down. He's not going to drop 20 AWP kills every game, guys. That's going to happen once in a blue moon. So really now, unlike the old team where it was we've got all these bevy of riches, will any of them play well? If which case, we will win. Now it basically has to be Elige and Twist have to be fucking bangers. Now listen, Elige is unbelievably good. And I think actually he's the underrated player of the last year and a half because he was just the NA version of Zero and Simply. He's never stopped being good. He was just good the whole time. Naf's a bit more hit and miss. So I think the key thing with them as a team is they've got all the pieces. They're still a really good team. I just don't always know if they actually can be number one. I'm not sure. I guess I can't answer the question. I don't know what holds them back, but I think they're so close. They're right on the brink, in my opinion.
I mean, if you go watch that series with G2, which was 2-1 to G2.
That was mad winnable.
Yeah, I mean, the crucial detail there is it was Hunter's best performance in a while because, we've talked about overlap between Nico and Hunter. Nico's arrival seems to coincide with Hunter dropping off. It was Hunter's best performance for a fucking long time. And unfortunately, that just happened to coincide with Elige playing a little bit below the level you usually expect from him. And because of those two facets, it became a razor thin series, ending with a 16-14 on Inferno that I know Liquid feel they should have won. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. I think right now, in terms of I had to place a bet on a guaranteed top 4 finish going into a tournament, obviously Gambit, right? You pick them, but I wouldn't say it about Na'Vi, for example. But I would say it about Liquid. I feel they're there right now.
By the way, here's a quick point for you as well.
Yeah.
This is why esports is just a mugs game. Where's all the praise for Moses?
Yeah,
we were called out 24/7 until they finally started having those good results at Katowice, Richard. That were and the global challenge. We were supposed to 24/7 be roasting Moses. He's a disgrace. Everyone lumped him in. Him, Henry G, Yanko, they're all just fucking frauds. No, they're not the game. Moses is doing a better job coaching this team right now than anyone did with Team Liquid the last 2 years.
Yep.
He's got less talent to work with in Team Liquid, and he's made them a better team. He's even reclaimed a player from the motherfucking trash heap in Fallen, and he's now a credible player again in the game. Like, I'm not saying he's the best coach in the world. He's got a long way to go. But I tell you what, he's really fucking turned around those first few months, hasn't he? Now give the man some praise.
Yeah. Well, we don't do it that way, do we?
I know. Just the nature of the scene, though. I thought it's in light of what the first hour was about. It's worth referencing.
Yeah, good point. Last 2 questions now. Chingu, how do you compare player skills from different periods of time? For example, a peak Kenny S to Simple or Ziwu in the modern era. I mean, it's very hard. You have to.
Oh, do you mean literally, as in like,
yes.
What would our methodology be or something?
Yeah, it's very difficult because what you have to understand is that generally in any esport, right, like you have this kind of like weird curve where everyone shit at the start. But obviously someone tells us to be the best, right? And then it progressively gets better. There'll be usually one team or one player, depending on whatever esport you're talking about, that like really raises the bar, makes things, it makes the impossible seem possible, recontextualizes the game, tries out something new. Then people emulate that, copy that. So now you're waiting for the person that can then take that to the next level. Then you're looking at maybe the money comes in and what do you do with it? And do you build it? And so you end up here and then it peaks. And then I think kind of where we're at now, just overall, as I said, I expect CS to start dropping off. Simple and Ziwu are, and Device for consistency, obviously. But, they're the two guys you have to look at now as just being like, it's what they do on a daily basis is fucking insane. And it's very hard to imagine where you can go next because that's also a key component of sports. Like, you can go back and watch, like, a Puskas or a Garincha or, some insane player from back in the day, fucking Stanley Matthews or whatever, and you can sort of contextualize it and say, well, look, he's even playing with a heavier ball and look at the close control and look at this and look at that. But the reality still remains that as great as they were in their era, they would have been fucking destroyed in this era, wouldn't have been able to hack it at all, because fitness has gone up, science has gone up, everything, every aspect of it's gone up. You've got decades of skills to build up on. Humans are physiologically different, evolutionary psychology and everything else going on. So there's just so many facets to it. You can't have a consistent criteria. All you can really do, and this is what we do in sports, is take someone from that era and then sort of lay that era out as it was and say, this is what they did, and maybe sort of look at the connective tissue between eras and see, at what point would the cutoff point for relevancy be? And so in that sense, was 2015 Kenny S, would I, if it was building a time team and I could have 2015 Kenny S or 2020 Ziwu? No, I take Ziwu. But if I want to talk about greatest AWPers of all time, 2015 Kenny S ain't a bad shout. Overall. Yeah,
basically, I very much agree. Like, the context of the era is the most important. It's not like absolute context, not least because absolutely they cannot ever play against each other. So it's like, even as a hypothetical, it makes it very difficult to do that one. My issue with it basically is this: is when we're talking about these players, esports games particularly, because they exist such a short amount of time and so many people are playing them, they have a worse problem than sports do. Like, it's true, if you go the extreme like Richard did there, like Stanley Matthews, that's so long ago, he is going to look shit if you watch the video. The problem is, if you would even go and watch people from the 90s, they're going to look really good still. Like when I was talking before about like Gabriel Batistuta, for example, go look at the YouTube video, guys, against some of the best Serie A defense. This guy's unbelievable. It'll look great now. Like the clips will look banging now. The problem in esports though is Kenny S was already fucking 2015, and I'm gonna say maybe 3 years after that, so let's go to 2018, he already would have looked a little bit outdated then. Like some of the shots he hit, you'd be like, why didn't the rifler kill him before then? Why did he have extra time to rescope? So the problem is he can only do it in eras. So what I'll say is this though, what I do think makes simple, and I'm going to have to only make it simple, I'm afraid, guys. I can't make it zero because it was online after his first year. The reason why it's simple to me is an alien at Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It's because one of the things actually in the early days, people who came from 1.6 like me always said was different about CSGO is it seemed like a way harder game to individually be consistently dominant at. Your team could be the best, but you didn't have the motherfuckers like Neo and Forrest who just had like years where they were just the best. People like Cold Zero was like devices now. He was in the best team and he was the most consistent best player in it. But he didn't have to like 1v9 every game. What makes simple, literally to me, like no one else who's ever played CSGO, is this guy, he has the Aaron Rodgers line. His down years would be career years for other people. That's impossible. How long this guy has been, like, if not the best, second best, is impossible. Like, for CSGO particularly, I've seen them all in CSGO. Like, the idea someone could be that good individually for that long, no matter what the results of the team are, the player coming in and out of the team, they're winning the tournament, they're coming ninth in the tournament. His performance to be the same, like, I actually do think, like, he's on the level now, in my opinion, where you have to take him and he has to go into that box of people like Faker from League of Legends or Flash from StarCraft. The greatest players of all time. They've transcended like esports itself. That's how great these guys were. So I will just say that, even though in the future there might be someone who'll make simple up shit, tell you what, let me see them be as good at the game for as long as he was. And seemingly, like I say, a down year would be like the best year ever for the person who's the third best in the world. You want to see it again, guys. Maybe Ziwu can do it, but if he does it, he's the second alien.
And listen, I won't rule out Ziwu taking it to that next level.
He earned the credit that you can at least put him in the mix,
But you know, we're not there yet for me. We're not there yet for me. I think to be a pro for as little time as he has and be in the conversation is already insane.
And he was robbed of it because of the pandemic. We can never know what he would have done offline,
exactly.
you know.
True. Yeah, true. Absolutely. So the last question, Watch Doge. Biggest group of cunts to be CS royalty? 2010 Na'Vi, current Astralis, the LGSK MIBR group, the Golden Five, or just Nico and his ego. I'll discount Nico immediately, as it is one person.
The two we have to discount have to be Nico and Virtus Pro. Because here's the thing, right? Virtus Pro, some of them were wankers. Some of them were pretty cool guys as well, you know.
I'm gonna be real about this. I'm gonna be real. I don't know what our relationship was like. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't talked to the boys for a while. I don't think we've got any problems, honestly.
I don't think so.
You know, and again, talking about the Golden Five, you know, the only one I never really knew was Luke. It was, right? I never really got to know him all that well. But, you know, when Cuban got his job, I congratulated him privately. I consider him a good guy. Neo always struck me as an unbelievably humble dude.
One of the nicest guys ever.
Yeah, I remember introducing a friend and saying this is like the greatest Counter-Strike player of all time, and he said, "Oh, Richard, don't say that." Like, you know, he very uneasy around that.
People don't know, I have an ident of Neo right on my channel, which I took when he was really good. Actually, I took it exactly the time, if you remember, when he was like fucking open and he was like a sick player at CVO and he was actually getting his career back together in CS:GO. I have that intro where he says, "I'm Neo, just an average CS:GO player." Right, that now isn't a very good video because that's just appropriate, accurate. But the reason he was willing to do that video, think of all my other videos. I get them to do the opposite, don't I? The joke is but that's exactly who he is as a person. He would only do it if I made it like I had to find a funny angle where he was self-deprecating, but like as though he was shit. Like that's how legit this guy is. In fact, all you need to know really about when CS:GO really clicked with me, never be the best, Richard. We actually did this interview for E-League, but I think they cut it because unfortunately they made those videos really short. I actually basically just said to him, You used to tell me in 1.6, no one should ever say you're the greatest because, maybe Forrest's better or something. I said, but now that you played CSGO and you're not as good, you must admit you were really good. And he was like, yeah, I actually realized now I was the best. Like,
yeah.
He only realized it now, though.
And Lord is coaching at Whistler Krakow now, who've had some big upsets and results. He's another guy that, I know him a little bit. Never had a problem with him. Struck me as a good guy, although I think he's banned now from all the majors, isn't he?
I think so. I know that he did some shady shit as well.
So, but I never, so maybe you can add that in the cunt points. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, what about Pasha? Well, look, Pasha wasn't one of the Golden Five. He was a replacement. And let me tell you, I've met Pasha many times. I think he's a really nice, affable guy.
One of the best.
Yeah. The one that was super cool dude. Even when he didn't speak English, would always try and communicate with you as best as he could in a foreign language. Never shied away from it. Was a really cool dude. So even if you want to include him, and then of course the one everyone talks about is Taz. And I'll just say this: nothing but respect for that guy. Down the years, he made his personality such a big part of the game for him that even when he wasn't playing well, you could understand justifiably why you would keep him around the team, because he was the lightning rod, the spokesperson, alleviated all of the pressure, and also when times were good, the ultimate hype man. So I'll never call any of them cunts. Frankly, I don't consider them cunts. They shouldn't be in the equation.
I don't think they should be on this list.
Yeah, not at all. So I want to make that abundantly clear before I do pick.
Because the other three groups he listed, who did he list? It was 2010 and Na'Vi, Astralis, the modern one, and then who was the third one though? Oh, SKLG, so Fallen, Zero. Right, here's the thing. He's nailed it with those three. That shortlist is fucking prime.
That shortlist is unbelievably hard. Yes. Now, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take current Astralis out because I've got no beef with the players. I know obviously there's the device thing, which wasn't great.
It's mainly just fuckery outside of the server with them.
Yeah, well, it's not even for me. I don't know. I don't look at any of their. I'd struggle to think if they're. I'm more of the blame the management kind of guys.
As far as I know, the players themselves did nothing wrong. They were just greedy. Which, by the way, it's not the biggest crime in the world. The other people we're talking about, think of some of the things LGSK have done to people and the impact they've had on people's careers. Na'Vi 2010, I mean, if you've been watching the show for the last 2 months, you're aware that's probably the biggest shower of cunts to ever win majors in CS history.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real tough one. I'm gonna have to go with this. So the 2010 Na'Vi were the most egotistical, narcissistic esports pros I ever came up against.
They also were in the era where they could just get away with the most shit as well. So they could really push the envelope, couldn't they?
But they're not going to be my pick. I'm going to
be LGSK in it. Come on,
simply because of the cheating. Repeatedly, habitually, weaponizing the fan base.
Dude, that's the thing I still to this day as a man can't get over. It's that when you're the one who has repeatedly cheated and flouted the rules on camera, you then call someone else up for cheating with zero evidence. I'll never be able to get over that because the leap in my mind there goes, it's okay for me to cheat but not you. What the fuck is that? I don't care if you're a champion. What the fuck is that?
And then, just it culminating with Dead being caught in part of the coaching scandal as well. But listen, I'll just say this: if you've not read it, the article's called "MIBR's Legacy Will Be One of Petulance, Not Excellence." We split it up into two parts. By the way,
nailed that as well.
Yeah, well, absolutely on point, isn't it? If you've not read it, go read it. It's over on Deserto. It's in 2 parts because of people's attention span. But if you go, I felt compelled because they kept doing it over and over again, where they would they would flame people, like guys like Taco, just zero self-awareness. They would flame people, and they were giving harassment to Leaf, a 16-year-old kid. They were working with Gowles on it, then turned around and said oh, Gowles isn't even our friend. KNG of all people trying to fucking talk about what these people are doing are bad for the game. Like, mate, you wrecked an entire org's entry into the game, you mad cunt. Like, for fuck's sake. So anyway, I just went and listed all of their transgressions because it had to be done. The historic record had to put it all in one place because these guys were unbelievable. And honestly, while Na'Vi probably did some stuff in 2012, 2013. And still to this day, they're always going to be cunts. Even now, Senya lying in print over at cybersport.ru, which I talked about on my VOD last night. But at the end of the day, that's just pro players' egos being cunts. They cheated on a couple of occasions, essentially kicking the PC and the ghosting incident, which they deny. But it was nothing compared to the wholesale flaunting of rules and the aggressive, vitriolic response from the fan base towards anyone who called them out that was generated by the Brazilian core. So they're the biggest cunts in Counter-Strike of all time for me. There is your crown. I don't know if you agree, Duncan.
I could flip a coin on either of those ones. I could go with the Na'Vi one. I could go with the LGSK one. Sad thing about both of those teams is these are teams that are doing some of this shit while in the prime, while they're number one in the world, where they win the major. So it's even more disgraceful to me. The idea you do that sort of thing while you're the best. Like, probably the most disgraceful thing about the Na'Vi players is you already were the best and you had to cheat. What the fuck does that say about you?
Yeah.
I get the guy who cheats, by the way, who's shit and is just desperate to make it. The guy who is the best and cheats is like, you're just greedy. That's all there is to it.
You know, the idea as well that, like, at the height of everything, there was something wrong with the Chaos social media team doing, look, I dug up a fossil.
What a light-hearted joke that was.
Yeah, and just showing a glittering trophy cabinet, by the way, for the Brazilian core. The fact that you couldn't take that in good grace, and then immediately replied with an entry from Steel. This was the org's official response before the players had a tantrum, with an entry for Steel in the match fixing incident. That's what they replied with. They considered that proportionate. So I just think at the end of the day, you know, you're not gonna meet bigger cunts than this. Like, their tiny, fragile little egos wasn't enough to break all the records, win all the trophies, get all the plaudits, get all the money, be, you know, have Bolsonaro calling you up. Yes, Mr. Fallen, I will give you tax breaks. You know, like, none of that is enough. You lost to a 16-year-old kid in your later years and you had to go fucking mental about it. So nah, bollocks. Bollocks to use. And there it is. That's the end of the show. Super long one because I haven't done one for a while. So thanks to everyone's patience and energy, Duncan and Sam. You prop me up right, even though I'm not getting a lot of sleep right now with all of my work. But thank you very much for that. So shout out to the sponsors, of course, that sponsor the show. .com/RLS. Make sure you sponsor them. It'll be beep.com on the YouTube VOD. And obviously NordVPN. Love those guys as well. Been supporting me now for a long time on the channel. We might be coming up to a year. It's all gone by in a blur. But get yourself 70% off. It's a great product. NordVPN.com/RLS to get that discount. And they made me a Tier A partner. So I know a lot of you are taking advantage of that. And yeah, thanks very much for the support. And of course, our patrons that sponsor the show with their hard-earned cash. Our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Benedict, Zerathenia, Cathal, Flacksmith, J-Dubs, Hannah Maru Alice, Tobias Bernasconi, Carve, Marcus Kyumpa, and our $50 patrons, Dancer Master, Adam Ox, No5712, Judas. Good to see. Yeah, he's back. He's back from the dead, looking to sell me out for 10 pieces of silver, probably. Thanks for the silver, Judas. Appreciate it. Maybe
Old
he's trying to atone.
Declan Hill, as I call him.
KU, Phil Gavin, A Rammer, Norwegian Clamai, Barkin, Goody Woody, Gerhan Kaya, Lonnie, Fursock, Echo, Rez Chi, Miss Alcoholic, BP420, Watch Doge, Reykjavik on Steam, Manuel Stockley, Benakagi, Alexi, and Sad. So that was another bumper episode of By the Numbers. Make sure you take care of yourselves, and we will see you next week.